big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with the mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed in endless and unglorious wars. What I care about is not winning prizes, it's saving lives. We saved millions and millions of lives with the 7 wars. And we have others that we're working on, and you know that. Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong, and the product that they were proposing to build was so bad and so costly. It was going to cost them a fortune. And I said, and wait till you see the overruns. Well, I turned out to be right. They had massive cost overruns and spent between $2 and $4 billion on the building and did not even get the marble floors that I promised them. You walk on terrazzo. Do you notice that? As far as I'm concerned, frankly, looking at the building and getting stuck on the escalator, they still haven't finished the job. They still haven't finished. That was years ago. The project was so corrupt that Congress actually asked me to testify before them on the tremendous waste of money, because it turned out that they had no idea what it was, but they knew it was anywhere between $2 and $4 billion as opposed to $500 million with a guarantee. But they had no idea, and I said it cost much more than $5 billion. Unfortunately, many things in the United Nations are happening just like that, but on an even much bigger scale, much, much bigger. Very sad to see. Whether the UN can manage to play a productive role, I've come here today to offer the hand of American leadership and friendship to any nation in this assembly that is willing to join us in forging a safer, more prosperous world. And it's a world that we'll be much happier with. A dramatically better future is within our reach. But to get there, we must reject the failed approaches of the past and work together to confront some of the greatest threats in history. There is no more serious danger to our planet today than the most powerful and destructive weapons ever devised by man, of which the United States, as you know, has many. Just as I did in my first term, I've made containing these threats a top priority, starting with the nation of Iran. My position is very simple. The world's #1 sponsor of terror can never be allowed to possess the most dangerous weapon. That's why, shortly after taking office, I sent the so-called Supreme Leader a letter making a generous offer. I extended a pledge of full cooperation in exchange for a suspension of Iran's nuclear program. The regime's answer was to continue their constant threats to their neighbors and U.S. interests throughout the region, and some great countries that are right nearby. Today, many of Iran's former military commanders, in fact, I can say almost all of them, are no longer with us. They're dead. And 3 months ago, in Operation Midnight Hammer, 7 American B-2 bombers dropped the 14 30,000-pound each bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally obliterating everything. No other country on earth could have done what we did. No other country has the equipment to do what we did. We have the greatest weapons on earth. We hate to use them. But we did something that for 22 years people wanted to do. With Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity demolished, I immediately brokered an end to the 12-day war, as it's called, between Israel and Iran, with both sides agreeing to fight no longer. As everyone knows, I have also been deeply engaged in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza. Have to get that done. Have to get it done. Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th, even while they refuse to release the hostages or accept a ceasefire. Instead of giving to Hamas and giving so much, because they've taken so much, they have taken so much. This could have been solved so long ago. But instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now. Just release the hostages now. Okay. Thank you. As we have got to come together, and we will come together, got to get it done. We have to stop the war in Gaza immediately. We have to stop it. We have to get it done. We have to negotiate, immediately have to negotiate peace. We got to get the hostages back. We want all 20 back. We don't want 2 and 4. As you know, I got, along with Steve Witkoff and others that helped us, Marco Rubio, we got most of them back. We were involved in all of them. But I always said the last 20 are going to be the hardest, and that's exactly what happened. We have to get them back now. We don't want to get back 2, and then another 2, and then 1, and then 3. Have this process. No, we want them all back, and we want the actually 38 dead bodies back too. Those parents came to me, and they want them back, and they want them back very quickly and very badly, as though they were alive. They want them. They want them every bit as much as if their son or daughter were alive. I've also been working relentlessly, stopping the killing in Ukraine. I thought that would be, of the 7 wars that I stopped, I thought that would be the easiest because of my relationship with President Putin, which had always been a good one. I thought that was going to be the easiest one. But, you know, in war, you never know what's going to happen. There are always lots of surprises, both good and bad. Everyone thought Russia would win this war in 3 days, but it didn't work out that way. It was supposed to be just a quick little skirmish. It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. No matter what happens from here on out, this was something that should have taken a matter of days, certainly less than a week. And they've been fighting for 3.5 years and killing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 young soldiers, mostly soldiers, on both sides, every single week, from 5,000 to 7,000 dead young people, and some in cities, much smaller numbers, where rockets are shot, where drones are dropped. This war would never have started if I were president. This was a war that should have never happened. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country. Look what happened to the United States, and look where we are right now in just a short period of time. The only question now is how many more lives will be needlessly lost on both sides. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal, to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to the city. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. They have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time. So I'm ready to discuss this. We're going to discuss it today with the European nations, all gathered here. I'm sure they're thrilled to hear me speak about it, but that's the way it is. I like to speak my mind and speak the truth. As we seek to reduce the threat of dangerous weapons today, I'm also calling on every nation to join us in ending the development of biological weapons once and for all. And biological is terrible, and nuclear is even beyond, and we include nuclear in that. We want to have a cessation of the development of nuclear weapons. We know, and I get to view it all the time. Sir, would you like to see? And I look at weapons that are so powerful that we just can't ever use them. If we ever use them, the world literally might come to an end. There would be no United Nations to be talking about. There would be no nothing. Just a few years ago, reckless experiments overseas gave us a devastating global pandemic. Yet despite that worldwide catastrophe, many countries are continuing extremely risky research into bioweapons and man-made pathogens. This is unbelievably dangerous. To prevent potential disasters, I'm announcing today that my administration will lead an international effort to enforce biological weapons convention, which is going to be meeting with the top leaders of the world by pioneering an AI verification system that everyone can trust. Hopefully the UN can play a constructive role, and it will also be one of the early projects under AI. Let's see how good it is, because a lot of people are saying it could be one of the great things ever, but it also can be dangerous, but it could be put to tremendous use and tremendous good, and this would be an example of that. Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the #1 political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I could call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed, so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. You have the right to control your borders, as we do now, and to limit the sheer numbers of migrants entering their countries and paid for by the people of that nation that were there and that built that particular nation at the time. They put their blood, sweat, tears, money into that country, and now they're being ruined. Proud nations must be allowed to protect their communities and prevent their societies from being overwhelmed by people they have never seen before, with different customs, religions, with different everything. Where migrants have violated laws, lodged false asylum claims, or claimed refugee status for illegitimate reasons, they should, in many cases, be immediately sent home. And while we will always have a big heart for places and people that are struggling and truly compassionate, answers will be given. We have to solve the problem, and we have to solve it in their countries, not create new problems in our countries. And we are very helpful to a lot of countries that are just not able to send their people anymore. They used to send them to us in caravans of 25,000, 30,000 people each. These massive caravans of people pouring into our country, totally unchecked and unvetted. But not anymore. According to the Council of Europe, in 2024, almost 50% of inmates in German prisons were foreign nationals or migrants. In Austria, the number was 53% of the people in prisons were from places that weren't from where they are now. In Greece, the number was 54%, and in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, 72% of the people in prisons are from outside of Switzerland. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime, it's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration. Once we started detaining and deporting everyone who crossed the border and removing illegal aliens from the United States, they simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore. This was a humanitarian act for all involved, because on the trips up, thousands of people a week were dying. Women were being raped. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Raped, horribly beaten, raped. On the trip up, the journey up, it was a long walk. It was a long, arduous journey, indeed. And it was also a historic victory against human trafficking throughout the region. What we did was a victory, and we saved so many lives of people that wouldn't make the journey. That journey was loaded up with death. Loaded up with death. Dead bodies all along the roads of jungles. To get up, they go through jungles, they go through areas so hot you couldn't breathe. They were dying of suffocation, areas so hot that you couldn't breathe. Dead bodies all over. By them not coming, we're saving tremendous numbers of lives. My people have done a fantastic job in doing what they did, and the American public agrees with it. I mean, I was very proud to see this morning I have the highest poll numbers I've ever had. Part of it is because of what we've done on the border. I guess the other part is what we've done in the economy. Joe Biden's policies empowered murderous gangs, human smugglers, child traffickers, drug cartels, and prisoners from all over the world. The previous administration also lost nearly 300,000 children. Think of that. They lost more than 300,000 children, little children, who were trafficked into the United States on the Biden watch, many of whom have been raped, exploited, and abused, and sold. Sold. Nobody talks about that. The fake news doesn't write about it. With many others, young children who are missing or dead. And we found a lot of these children, and we're sending them back, and we've been sending them back to their parents. They said, nobody knows who they are. They said, where do you come from? And they'll give us a country, and we'll find out, and we'll figure it out, and we'll bring them back to their homes. And the mother and father rush to the door, and their tears in their eyes. They can't believe that they're seeing their son or daughter, their little son or daughter again. We've done almost 30,000 of them so far. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil. Yet that is exactly what the globalist migration agenda has done, and it's what it's all about. In America, those days, as you know, are over. The Trump administration is working, and we are continuing to work to track down the villains that are causing this problem, and also, as I said, to get back the 30,000 we've already returned. Now I think we're going to have another. We're going to find a lot. You're not going to find all of them. 300, more than 300,000. They're lost or they're dead. They're lost or they're dead because of the animals that did this. To protect our citizens, I've also designated multiple savage drug cartels as far as and you see this, and you see it happening right before your eyes. Let's put it this way. People don't like taking big loads of drugs in boats anymore. There aren't too many boats that are traveling on the seas by Venezuela. They tend not to want to travel very quickly anymore. And we've virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea. We call them the water drugs. They kill hundreds of thousands of people. I've also designated multiple savage drug cartels as far as foreign terrorist organizations, along with two bloodthirsty transnational gangs, probably the worst gangs anywhere in the world, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua is from Venezuela, by the way. Such organizations torture, maim, mutilate, and murder with impunity. They're the enemies of all humanity. For this reason, we've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military to destroy Venezuelan terrorists and trafficking networks led by Nicolas Maduro. To every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will blow you out of existence. That's what we're doing. We have no choice. Can't let it happen. They're destroying. I believe we lost 300,000 people last year to drugs, 300,000. Fentanyl and other drugs. Each boat that we sink carries drugs that would kill more than 25,000 Americans. We will not let that happen. Energy is another area where the United States is now thriving like never before. We're getting rid of the falsely named renewables. By the way, they're a joke. They don't work. They're too expensive. They're not strong enough to fire up the plants that you need to make your country great. The wind doesn't blow. Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad, so expensive to operate. And they have to be rebuilt all the time, and they start to rust and rot. Most expensive energy ever conceived, and it's actually energy. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. You lose money, the governments have to subsidize. You can't put them out without massive subsidies. And most of them are built in China, and I give China a lot of credit. They build them, but they have very few wind farms. So why is it that they build them and they send them all over the world, but they barely use them? You know what they use? Coal. They use gas. They use almost anything, but they don't like wind. But they sure as hell like selling the windmills. Europe, on the other hand, has a long way to go, with many countries being on the brink of destruction because of the green energy agenda. And I give a lot of credit to Germany. Germany was being led down a very sick path, both on immigration, by the way, and on energy. They were going green, and they were going bankrupt. And the new leadership came in, and they went back to where they were, with fossil fuel and with nuclear, which is good. It's now safe. You can do it properly. But they went back to where they were, and they opened up a lot of different plants, energy-producing plants, and they're doing well. I give Germany a lot of credit for that. They've said this is a disaster, what's happening. They were going all green. All green is all bankrupt. That's what it represents. And it's not politically correct. I'll be very badly criticized for saying it, but I'm here to tell the truth. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm in New York City. I'm feeling a lot safer. Crime, we're getting crime down. And by the way, speaking of crime, Washington, D.C. was the crime capital of America. Now it's after 12 days, it's a totally safe city. Everyone's going out to dinner. They're going out to restaurants. Your wife can walk down the middle of the street with or without you. Nothing's going to happen. My people have done a fantastic job. And yes, I called in the National Guard, and the National Guard took care of business. And they weren't politically correct, but they took care of business. We got 1,700 career criminals out, brought them back to where they came from, the countries where they came from, or put them in jails. Washington, D.C. is now a totally safe city again, and I welcome you to come. In fact, we'll have dinner together at a local restaurant, and we'll be able to walk. We don't have to go by an armor-plated vehicle. We'll walk right over there from the White House. They've given up their powerful edge, a lot of the countries that we're talking about, in oil and gas, such as essentially closing the great North Sea oil. Oh, the North Sea, I know it so well. Aberdeen was the oil capital of Europe, and there's tremendous oil that hasn't been found in the North Sea. Tremendous oil. And I was with the Prime Minister I respect and like a lot, and I said, you're sitting with the greatest asset. They essentially closed it by making it so highly taxed that no developer, no oil company can go there. They have tremendous oil left, and more importantly, they have tremendous oil that hasn't even been found yet. And what a tremendous asset for the United Kingdom. And I hope the Prime Minister is listening, because I told it to him 3 days in a row. That's all he heard. North Sea oil, North Sea, because I want to see them do well. I want to stop seeing them ruining that beautiful Scottish and English countryside with windmills and massive solar panels that go 7 miles by 7 miles, taking away farmland. But we're not letting this happen in America. In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change, because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy catastrophe before it's too late. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. You know, the carbon footprint, it was a big, big thing a few years ago. I remember hearing about the carbon footprint, and then President Obama would get into Air Force One, a massive Boeing 747, and not a new one, an old one with old engines that spew everything into the atmosphere. He'd talk about the carbon footprint, we must do so. Then he'd get in and he'd fly from Washington to Hawaii to play a round of golf. And then he'd get back onto that big, beautiful plane and he'd fly back and he'd talk about, again, global warming and the carbon footprint. It's a con job. At extreme cost and expense, Europe reduced its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs, a lot of factories closed, but you reduced the carbon footprint by 37%. However, for all of that sacrifice and much more, it's been totally wiped out and then some by a global increase of 54%. Much of it coming from China and other countries that are thriving around China, which now produces more CO2 than all the other developed nations in the world. So all of these countries are working so hard on the carbon footprint, which is nonsense, by the way. It's nonsense. You know, it's interesting. In the United States, we have still radicalized environmentalists, and they want the factories to stop. Everything should stop. No more cows. We don't want cows anymore. I guess they want to kill all the cows. They want to do things that are just unbelievable, and you have it too. But, you know, we have a border, strong, and we have a shape, and that shape doesn't just go straight up. That shape is amorphous when it comes to the atmosphere. And if we had the most clean air, and I think we do, we have very clean air. We have the cleanest air we've had in many, many years. But the problem is that other countries, like China, which has air that's a little bit rough, it blows. And no matter what you're doing down here, the air up here tends to get very dirty because it comes in from other countries where their air isn't so clean. And the environmentalists refuse to acknowledge that. Same thing with garbage. In Asia, they dump much of their garbage right into the ocean. And over about a 1 week and 2 week journey, it flows right past Los Angeles. You've seen it. Massive amounts of garbage, almost too much to do anything about, flowing past Los Angeles, past San Francisco, and then somebody will get in trouble because he dropped a cigarette on the beach. The whole thing is crazy. The primary effect of these brutal green energy policies has not been to help the environment, but to redistribute manufacturing and industrial activity from developed countries that follow the insane rules that are put down to polluting countries that break the rules and are making a fortune. They're making a fortune. European electricity bills are now 4 to 5 times more expensive than those in China. and 2 to 3 times higher than the United States. And our bills are coming way down. You probably see that our gasoline prices are way down. You know, we have an expression, drill, baby,
Nós
drill.
reduzimos
And
os
that's what we're
custos
doing.
de energia, porque nós faremos, como essa previsão, vamos fazer tudo isso, reduzir os custos de energia, e os custos diminuíram nos Estados Unidos. Por exemplo, se você olhar nos países em faturas de mas nós nos Estados Unidos conseguimos usar eles e evitar aumento da temperatura, porque é muito caro também usar nada e ninguém usa.
The entire globalist concept asking successful industrialized nations to inflict pain on themselves and radically disrupt their entire societies must be rejected completely and totally, and it must be immediate.
Aumento da temperatura, porque é muito caro também usar nada e ninguém usa.
Pretending to stop was paying so much more than every country. Others weren't paying. China didn't have to pay until 2030. Russia was given an old standard that was easy to meet, a 1990 standard. But for the United States, we're supposed to pay like $1 trillion. And I said, this is another scam. The fact is, the United States has been taken advantage of by the world for many, many years, but not any longer, as you probably noticed. I unleashed massive energy production and signed historic executive orders to hunt for oil, but we don't have to do much hunting because we have the most oil of any nation anywhere, oil and gas in the world. And if you add coal, we have the most of any nation in the world. Clean, I call it clean, beautiful coal. You can do things today with coal that you couldn't have done 10 years ago, 15 years. So I have a little standing order in the White House. Never use the word coal, only use the words clean, beautiful coal. Sounds much better, doesn't it? But we stand ready to provide any country with abundant, affordable energy supplies if you need them, when most of you do. We're proudly exporting energy all over the world. We're now the largest exporter. In the United States, we want trade and robust commerce with all nations, everybody. We want to help nations. We're going to help nations. But it must also be fair and reciprocal. The challenge with trade is much the same with climate. The countries that followed the rules, all their factories have been plundered. It's really sad to watch. They've been broken. They've been broken by countries that broke the rules. That's why the United States is now applying tariffs to other countries, and much as these tariffs were for many years applied to us, uncontrollably applied to us. We've used tariffs as a defense mechanism under the Trump administration, including my first term, where hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs were taken in. And by the way, we had the lowest inflation, and now we have very low inflation. The only thing different is that we have hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into our country. But this is how we will ensure that the system works for everyone and is sustainable into the future. We're also using tariffs to defend our sovereignty and security throughout the world, including against nations that have taken advantage of former U.S. administrations for decades, including the most corrupt, incompetent administration in history, the sleepy Joe Biden administration. Brazil now faces major tariffs in response to its unprecedented efforts to interfere in the rights and freedoms of our American citizens and others, with censorship, repression, weaponization, judicial corruption, and targeting of political critics in the United States. I have a little problem saying this because I must tell you, I was walking in and the leader of Brazil was walking out. We saw him, and I saw him, he saw me, and we embraced. And then I'm saying, can you believe I'm going to be saying this in just 2 minutes? But we actually agreed that we would meet next week. We didn't have much time to talk, like about 20 seconds. They were, in retrospect, I'm glad I waited because this thing didn't work out too well. But we did talk. We had a good talk, and we agreed to meet next week, if that's of interest. But he seemed like a very nice man, actually. He liked me, I liked him. But if you, and I only do business with people I like. When I don't like them, I don't like them. But we had, at least for about 39 seconds, we had excellent chemistry. It's a good sign. But also in the past, Brazil, can you believe this, unfairly tariffed our nation, but now because of our tariffs, we are hitting them back, and we're hitting them back very hard. As president, I will always defend our national sovereignty and the rights of American citizens. So I'm very sorry to say this, that Brazil is doing poorly and will continue to do poorly. They can only do well when they're working with us. Without us, they will fail, just as others have failed. It's true. Next year, the United States will celebrate the 250th anniversary of our glorious independence, a testament to enduring power and American freedom and spirit. We will also be proudly hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and shortly thereafter, the 2028 Olympics, which is going to be very exciting. I hope you all come. I hope that countless people from all over the globe will take part of these will be great celebrations of liberty and human achievement, and that together we all can rejoice in the miracles of history that began in July 4th, 1776, when we founded the light to all nations. And it's something really that an amazing thing came out of that date. It's called the United States of America. In honor of this momentous anniversary, I hope that all countries who find inspiration in our example will join us in renewing our commitment, values, and those values, really, that we hold so dear together. Let us defend free speech and free expression. Let us protect religious liberty, including for the most persecuted religion on the planet today. It's called Christianity. And let us safeguard our sovereignty and cherish qualities that have made each of our nations so special, incredible, and extraordinary. In closing, I just want to repeat that immigration and the high cost of so-called green renewable energy is destroying a large part of the free world and a large part of our planet. Countries that cherish freedom are fading fast because of their policies on these two subjects. You need strong borders and traditional energy sources if you are going to be great again. Whether you have come from north or south, east or west, near or far, every leader in this beautiful hall today represents a rich culture, a noble history, and a proud heritage that makes each nation majestic and unique, unlike anything else in human history or any other place on the face of the earth. From London to Lima, from Rome to Athens, from Paris to Seoul, from Cairo to Tokyo and Amsterdam to right here in New York City, we stand on the shoulders of the leaders and legends, generals and giants, heroes and titans who won and built our beloved nations, all of our nations, with their own courage, strength, spirit, and skill. Our ancestors climbed mountains, conquered oceans, crossed deserts, and trekked over wide open plains. They charged into thunderous battles, plunged into grave dangers, and they were soldiers and farmers and workers and warriors and explorers and patriots. They built towns into cities, tribes into kingdoms, ideas into industries, and small islands into mighty empires. You're a part of all of that. They were champions for their people who never gave up and who never, ever gave in. Their values defined our national identities. Their visions forged our magnificent destiny. Everybody in this room is a part of it in your own way. Each of us inherits the deeds and the myths, the triumphs, the legacies of our own heroes and founders who so bravely showed us the way. Our ancestors gave everything for homelands that they defended with pride, with sweat, with blood, with life, and with death. Now the righteous task of protecting the nations that they built belongs to each and every one of us. So together, let us uphold our sacred duty to our people and to our citizens. Let us protect their borders, ensure their safety, preserve their cultures, treasure, and traditions, and fight, fight, fight for their precious dreams and their cherished freedoms. And in friendship and really a beautiful vision, let us all work together to build a bright, beautiful planet, a planet that we all share, a planet of peace and a world that is richer, better, and more beautiful than ever before. That can happen. It will happen. It will happen, and I hope it can happen and start right now, right at this moment. We'll turn it around. We're going to make our countries better, safer, more beautiful. We're going to take care of our people. Thank you very much. It's been an honor. God bless the nations of the world. Thank you very much. Bye.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the United States,
please be seated. Please be seated.
Excellencies, could you please take your seats in due respect to the next speakers? The second row, could you please take your seat right now? Please take a seat now. With due respect to the next speakers, I would kindly ask you, gentlemen in the left row, please take your seats. We will continue. Excellencies, as we are receiving queries, I would like to assure you that don't worry, the UN teleprompters are working perfectly. And by this technical note, I would like to call on the next speaker. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Prabowo Subianto, President of the Republic of Indonesia. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
His Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency, Madame Annalena Baerbock, President of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency, Mr. Moses Abelian, Under-Secretary General for General Assembly and Management, Excellencies, Heads of States, Heads of Governments, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor for me to stand in this august General Assembly Hall among leaders and representatives who represent almost all of humanity. We differ in race, religion, and nationality, yet we gather together today as one human family. We are here first and foremost as fellow human beings, each created equal, endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The words of the United Nations Declaration of Independence have inspired democratic movements across continents, including the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Mexican Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, and Indonesia's own struggle and journey to freedom. It also gave birth to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1948. All men are created equal was the creed that opened the way to unprecedented global prosperity and dignity. And yet, in our own era of scientific and technological triumphs, an era capable of ending hunger, poverty, and environmental ruin, we also continue to face today grave dangers, challenges, and uncertainties. Human folly, fueled by fear, racism, hatred, oppression, and apartheid, threatens our common future. My country knows this pain. For centuries, Indonesians lived under colonial domination, oppression, and slavery. We were treated less than dogs in our own homeland. We Indonesians know what it means to be denied justice and what it means to live in apartheid, to live in poverty, and to be denied equal opportunity. We also knew what solidarity can do. In our struggle for independence, in our fight to overcome hunger, disease, and poverty, the United Nations stood with Indonesia and gave us vital assistance. Decisions made here based on human solidarity by the Security Council and this Assembly gave Indonesia independence, international legitimacy, opened doors, and supported our early development through the efforts of the United Nations Children Fund, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, the World Health Organization, and many, many other United Nations institutions. And because of that, Indonesia today stands on the cusp of shared prosperity and greater equality and dignity. Madam President, Excellencies, our world today is driven by conflict, injustice, and deepening uncertainty. Every day we witness suffering, genocide, and blatant disregard for international law and human decency. In the face of these challenges, we must not give up. As the United Nations Secretary General said, we cannot give up. We cannot surrender our hopes or our ideals. We must draw closer, not drift apart. Together we must strive to achieve our hopes, our dreams. The United Nations was born from the ashes of the Second World War that claimed scores of millions of lives. It was created to secure peace, security, justice, and freedom for all. We remain committed to internationalism, to multilateralism, and to every effort that strengthens this great institution. Today, Indonesia is nearer than ever before to meeting the sustainable development goals of ending extreme poverty and hunger. Because years ago, this very chamber chose to listen and uphold social and economic justice, we will never forget. And today, we must never be silent while Palestinians are denied that same justice and legitimacy in this very hall. Excellencies, Thucydides warned, the strong do what they can, the weak suffer what they must. We must reject this doctrine. The United Nations exist to reject this doctrine. We must stand for all, the strong and the weak. Might cannot be right. Right must be right. Indonesia today is one of the largest contributors to United Peacekeeping Forces. We believe in the United Nations. We will continue to serve where peace needs guardians, not with just words, but with boots on the ground. If and when the United Nations Security Council and this great assembly decide Indonesia is prepared to deploy 20,000 or even more of our sons and daughters to help secure peace in Gaza or elsewhere, in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Libya, everywhere when the peace needs to be enforced, peace needs to be guarded, we are ready. We will take our share of the burden, not only with our sons and daughters, we are also willing to contribute financially to support the great mission to achieve peace by the United Nations. Madam President, Excellencies, I propose to this Assembly a message of hope and optimism, grounded in action and execution. Today, we heard the speech of Madam President, the President of the United Nations General Assembly. Yes, it is true what she said. Without the International Civil Aviation Organization, will we be here today? Will we sit in this great hall? Without the United Nations, we cannot be safe. No country can feel secure. We need the United Nations, and Indonesia will continue to support the United Nations. Even though we still struggle, but we know the world needs a strong United Nations. The world's population is growing. Our planet is under strain. Food, energy, and water insecurity haunt many nations. We choose to answer these challenges directly at home and to help abroad wherever we can. This year, Indonesia recorded the highest rice production and grain reserves in our history. We are now self-sufficient in rice, and we are starting now to export rice to other nations in need, including providing rice for Palestine. We are building resilient food supply chains, strengthening farmer productivity, investing in climate-smart agriculture to ensure food security for our children and for the children of the world. We are confident in a few years' time, Indonesia will be the granary of the world. As the world's largest island state, we testify before you that we are already experiencing the direct consequences of climate change, particularly the threat of rising sea levels. The sea level on the north coast of our capital city is increasing by 5 centimeters every year. Can you imagine in 10 years? Can you imagine in 20 years? For this, we are forced to build a giant seawall, 480 kilometers in length. It will take us maybe 20 years, but we have no choice. We have to start now. Therefore, we choose to confront climate change not by slogans, but by immediate steps. We are committed to meeting our 2015 Paris Agreement obligations. We aim to achieve net zero emission by 2060, and we are very confident we can achieve net zero emission much earlier. We aim to reforest more than 12 million hectares of degraded forest, to reduce forest degradation, to empower local communities with quality green jobs for the future. Indonesia is shifting decisively from fossil fuel-based development towards renewable-based development. From next year, most of our additional power generation capacity will come from renewables. Our goal is clear: to lift all of our citizens out of poverty and make Indonesia a hub for solutions to food, energy, and water security. Madam President, Excellencies, we live in a time when hatred and violence can seem to be the loudest voices. But beneath this loud noise lies a quieter truth, that every person longs to be safe, to be respected, to be loved, and to leave a better world to their children. Our children are watching. They are learning leadership, not from textbook, but from our choices. Today, still, a catastrophic situation in Gaza is unfolding before our eyes. At this very moment, the innocent are crying for help, are crying to be saved. Who will save them? Who will save the innocent? Who will save the old and women? Millions are facing danger at this very moment. As we sit here, they are facing trauma. They are facing irreparable damage to their bodies. They are dying of starvation. Can we remain silent? Will there be no answer to their screams? Will we teach them that the human family can rise to the challenge? Madam President, we must act now. Many speakers have said that. We must stand for a multilateral order where peace, prosperity, and progress are not the privilege of a few, but the right of all. With a strong United Nations, we can build a world where the weak do not suffer what they must, but live the justice that they deserve. Let us continue humanity's great journey of ideals, the selfless aspirations that created the United Nations. Let us use science to uplift, not use science to destroy. Let rising nations help others to lift themselves. I am convinced that the leaders of the great world civilizations of the West, of the East, of the North, of the South, leaders of America, Europe, of India, China, the Islamic world, the whole world, I am convinced they will rise to their role demanded by history. We are all hopeful that the leaders of the world will show great statesmanship, great wisdom, restraint, humility, overcome hate, overcome suspicion. Madam President, distinguished delegates, we are greatly heartened by the events of the last few days, where significant leading countries of the world have chosen to side with history, to choose the right side of history, the path of the moral high ground, the path of rectitude, the path of justice, the path of humanity, to shun hatred, to overcome suspicion, and to avoid the use of violence. The use of violence will beget violence. No one country can bully the whole community of the human family. We may be weak individually, but the sense of oppression, the sense of injustice has proven in the history of mankind that this sense of injustice, this sense of oppression will unite into a strong force that will overcome this oppression, that will overcome this injustice. To close, I would like to reiterate again Indonesia's complete support for the two-state solution in Palestine. We must have an independent Palestine, but we must also recognize, we must also respect, and we must also guarantee the safety and security of Israel. Only then we can have real peace, and no longer hate and no longer suspicion. The only solution is this two-state solution. Two descendants of Abraham must live in reconciliation, peace, and harmony. Arabs, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, all religions, we must live as one human family. Indonesia is committed to being part of making this vision a reality. Is this a dream? Maybe, but this is the beautiful dream that we must work together towards. Let us work towards this noble goal. Let us continue humanity's journey of hope, a journey started by our forefathers, a journey that we must complete. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Namo Buddhaya. Thank you very much. May God bless us all. May peace be upon us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Indonesia. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of the Republic of Turkey. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Sayın Başkan,
Excellency,
değerli
President of UNGA,
devlet ve hükümet başkanları,
Excellencies, Heads of State and Government,
Sayın Genel Sekreter,
Distinguished Secretary
kıymetli
General,
delegeler,
distinguished
sizleri
delegation members,
şahsım ve milletim
on behalf
adına
of myself and
en
my
kalbi
nation, I
duygularımla
greet you all with
selamlıyorum.
most heartfelt feelings.
Birleşmiş Milletler
I wish
80.
for the
Genel
80th
Kurulu'nun
United
tüm
Nations
insanlık
General
için
Assembly to
hayırlara
bring
vesile
blessings to
olmasını
all humanity.
temenni ediyorum. İnsanlığın ortak vicdanını temsil
I'm
eden
deeply honored
bu
to
kürsüden
address you once again from this
sizlere bir
podium,
kez daha hitap
which
etmekten
represents the collective
büyük
conscience
bir bahtiyarlık
of
duyuyorum.
humanity.
Genel Kurul Başkanlığını tamamlayan
I congratulate
Sayın
Mr.
Young'ı tebrik
who
ediyor.
has completed
Bu
his
görevi
term as
devralan
President of the General
Sayın
Assembly,
Berbok'a
and I wish
başarılar
success to
diliyorum.
Ms. Baerbock, who has
Konuşmamın hemen
taken
başında
over this position.
Filistin'in giderek artan sayıda ülke
At the outset
tarafından
of my
tanındığı
speech,
bir
I would like to
dönemde
first express my
Filistin
regret
Devlet
at the
Başkanı
absence today
Sayın
of the
Mahmud
President
Abbas'ın
of the State
bugün
of Palestine,
bizzat
Mahmud
aramızda
Abbas,
olamayışından
at a time when
duyduğum
Palestine
üzüntüyü
is being
ifade etmek istiyorum.
recognized by an increasing number of
Biz
countries.
bugün bu kürsüde
Today,
kendi
we stand here
vatandaşlarımızla
on this
birlikte
podium. I
sesi
stand here on
kısılmak
this
istenen
podium
Filistin
alongside
halkına
my
tercüman olmak
86
için
million
de
citizens,
bulunuyorum.
also for our
Filistin
Palestinian
devletini
brothers and
tanıyacağını
sisters
açıklayan
whose voices are
tüm
being silenced.
ülkelere teşekkür ediyor. Henüz bu kararı almayan
I'd like to
devletleri
thank all the
ise
countries
bir an
who
önce
announced that they
harekete
recognize the
geçmeye
state of
çağırıyorum.
Palestine, and I call
Sayın
on
Başkan,
all the other countries
değerli
who
üyeler,
have not done so yet
Birleşmiş
to do
Milletler
so to
şartı
recognize
bundan
the state of
80 yıl
Palestine as
önce
soon as
San
possible.
Francisco'da imzalandı
Esteemed President,
ve
distinguished members,
24 Ekim
the United Nations Charter was
1945'te
signed in San
yürürlüğe
Francisco
girdi.
8 years ago, and it
Birleşmiş
entered into
Milletler
force on
Kuruluş
October the
Şartı'nın
24th,
ilk
1945.
maddesinin ilk
I
kelimelerini
would like to recall here
burada
again the first
tekrar
words of the
hatırlatmak
first
isterim.
article of the UN Charter.
Birleşmiş Milletler'in amacı
The
uluslararası
purpose of
barış
the United Nations
ve güvenliği
is to maintain
korumaktır.
international peace and
Evet,
security.
bizler
Unquote.
bu salonda Birleşmiş
As
Milletler'in
we celebrate the 80th anniversary
80.
of the
yaşını
UN in
kutlarken
this hall, grave
dünyanın
events are
birçok bölgesinde
unfolding in many parts
kuruluş
of the world
şartının
that cast
ilk
a shadow
maddesinin
over the
ilk
very first
kelimelerine
words of
gölge düşürecek
the UN Charter's
vahim
opening
hadiseler yaşanıyor.
article.
Özellikle Gazze'de gözlerimizin önünde
Particularly in Gaza,
700 günü
right
aşkın bir
before our very
süredir
eyes,
soykırım
genocide has been going
devam
on
ediyor.
for over
Biz
700 days
toplantı
now.
halindeyken dahi
Even as we gather
Gazze'de
here, as we
şu
speak
anda
now,
siviller
Israel is currently
katlediliyor.
massacring civilians in
Gazze'de
Gaza.
ölen sivillerin sayısı
The number of civilian
65
casualties
bini
in
geçti.
Gaza has surpassed
Enkaz altında
65,000.
kaç cenazenin olduğu
Unfortunately,
henüz
the number of
bilinmiyor.
people who are still trapped under the
Ölenlerin
rubble
20
is
binden
not yet
fazlası
known.
çocuk.
And more than 20,000
İsrail
of those who
tarafından
died
Gazze'de
were children.
son 23 aydır
For the last
her
23
saat,
months,
evet,
a
her
child
saat
has been
bir
murdered
çocuk
by Israel in
acımasızca
Gaza every
hayattan
hour. Yes,
kopartılıyor.
every hour.
Bunlar sayı değil dostlar.
These are not just figures,
Hepsi birer
dear
can,
friends. All
birer
of these, each one
masum
of
insan.
these is a
Şu anda
person, a
sadece
human being,
silahlarla
innocent
değil,
people. People are now being
açlık
killed not
silahıyla
with
da
weapons,
insanlar
but with the
öldürülüyor.
weapon of starvation.
21. yüzyılda medeni
In the
dünyanın
21st
bakışları
century,
altında
under the gaze of the
146
civilized
çocuk,
world, 428
428
people
kişi
died of starvation.
açlıktan
Out of
hayatını
those
kaybetti
428,
ve sayı her geçen gün
146
artıyor.
were children.
Şimdi
And
size
this number is increasing
Gazze'deki
every day.
günlük hayatı anlatan
Now,
bir fotoğraf
I will show you a
göstereceğim.
photo, which is a picture from daily life in
Birinci
Gaza.
fotoğraf
The first photo,
gördüğünüz gibi
as you see,
ellerinde
these are
leğenli
people.
kadınlar.
These are women
Lütfen
with
hepimiz
these cups that they are
elimizi
holding in their
vicdanımıza koyup
hands, cups
cevap
and
verin.
buckets. Just
2025
feel your
yılında
conscience and answer
böyle
the
bir
following
gaddallığın
question.
makul bir sebebi
Can we possibly
olabilir
have a
mi?
reasonable reason
Fakat
for this
insanlık
brutality
adına
in
bu utanç
2025?
manzarası Gazze'de
This
23
shameful
aydır her gün
picture in Gaza
tekrar
has been
ediyor.
unfolding and is being repeated
365
every day
kilometre
for
kare içinde
23
yaşayan
months now.
2,5 milyon
And
Gazze'li
there are
her
2.5
gün
million
yerinden
Gazans
ediliyor.
who live
Her
in
gün bir başka
365
bölgeye
square
göçe
kilometers. And every day,
zorlanıyor.
what happens
Gazze'nin
is
sağlık
they are
altyapısı tamamen
being dragged from one
çökmüş
place
durumda.
to another. The
Doktorlar
healthcare
öldürüldü
infrastructure
ya
of
da
Gaza
gözaltına alındı.
is completely collapsed. Doctors
Ambulanslar
have been killed
vuruldu.
or they have
Hastaneler
disappeared
bombalandı.
while under custody.
Yıkıldı.
Ambulances have been hit.
Tedavi
Hospitals
mümkün değil.
targeted and destroyed.
Operasyon
Treatment
mümkün
is
değil.
not possible. Surgery
İlaç
is
bulmak
not possible. It's
mümkün
not
değil.
possible to find
Dostlar,
medications.
bakın
Now,
Tayyip
dear
Erdoğan olarak
Now, as
içim
Tayyip
yanarak,
Erdoğan, with
içim
a
kan
heavy
ağlayarak
heart,
söylüyorum.
with my heart
Henüz
bleeding here,
2-3
I'm telling you,
yaşındaki elleri,
innocent
kolları,
little ones,
bacakları
just
olmayan
2 or 3 years
masum
old,
yavrucuklar
without hands,
bugün
arms
maalesef
or legs,
Gazze'nin
have
olağan
become,
fotoğrafı haline
unfortunately,
gelmiştir.
a common sight to see in Gaza.
Buna hangi vicdan dayanır?
What kind of a human conscience can
Hangi vicdan
possibly
buna
bear this?
sessiz kalabilir?
Possibly. How
Çocukların
can
açlıktan,
one stay silent vis-a-vis this?
ilaçsızlıktan öldüğü bir dünyada
In a world where
huzur olur
children
mu?
are dying of starvation and lack of
Hepimiz
medication, can we possibly
anne
have
babayız.
calm and peace? We all are
üzerine
parents.
titrediğimiz
We have
evlatlarımız,
children
torunlarımız
or
var.
grandchildren
Burada,
who we dearly cherish.
Amerika'da,
Here,
Avrupa'da,
say in
dünyanın her
America or
yerinde
in Europe, anywhere
bir
in the
çocuğun
world,
eline
when a
küçük
small
bir
rose
diken batsa,
thorn hurts a
anne
child's
babaların
hand,
yüreği yanıyor.
the hearts of
Ama
parents
Gazze'de
break. But in
çocukların
Gaza,
elleri,
children's
kolları,
hands, arms,
bacakları
and legs are
anestezi
being amputated
yapılmadan
without
ampute ediliyor.
anesthesia.
Kimse kusura bakmasın ama
Now, I'm extremely
bu
sorry to say,
insanlığın
but this
dip noktası.
represents the lowest point of
İnsanlık
humanity.
tarihi son bir asırda
Human
böyle
history
bir vahşet
has not witnessed
görmemiş.
such bloodshed within the last century.
Her şey gözümüzün
All
önünde cereyan
of this
ediyor.
is happening before our very eyes.
Gazze'deki soykırım,
The genocide
medya,
in Gaza
sosyal
is
medya
being
aracılığıyla
broadcast
her an canlı olarak
live every
yayınlanıyor.
moment through the
İsrail,
media and social media.
Şu ana kadar Gazze'de
So far,
ulusal
Israel
ve
has
uluslararası
deliberately
basında
killed
çalışan
250
250
journalists
gazeteciyi
working in national and
kasıtlı
international
olarak
media in
öldürdü.
Gaza.
Gazze'ye tüm girişleri yasakladı.
And
Ama yine de
they
soykırımı
have closed
gizleyemedi.
all the entrance
Filistin
into Gaza,
topraklarında
but they still have not
devam
been able to
eden
cover up the genocide.
soykırıma her fırsatta
I
dikkatlerini çeken
wholeheartedly support
Genel
Secretary General
Sekreter
Guterres
Sayın
because he
Guterres'i
consistently draws
gönülden
attention to the
destekliyorum.
ongoing
Cesareti için
genocide
kendisini
in Palestinian
bir kez
territories,
daha
and I would
tebrik
like to once
ediyorum.
again congratulate him for his courage.
Ancak
But
Birleşmiş Milletler
the
Gazze'de
United
kendi
Nations has
çalışanlarını
not
dahi
even been able to
maalesef
protect its own
koruyamamıştır.
personnel in Gaza.
Gazze'de insanlara yardım için
Unfortunately.
koşturan 500
In
kişi
Gaza, 500
öldürülmüştür.
people rushing to help others
Ve
have been
bunların
killed. Out
326'sı
of those 500,
Birleşmiş Milletler personelidir.
326 were
Sayın
UN
Başkan,
staff members.
değerli üyeler,
Esteemed President,
bakınız
distinguished members,
soykırım tıpkı
Now,
Holocaust gibi insanların toplu halde iması
genocide,
için
like the
kullanılan
Holocaust, is a
utanç
shameful
verici,
concept which
insanlık
refers
dışı
to the mass
barbarca bir
extermination
kavramdır.
of people. It's a
Oysa
barbaric
bugün
concept.
Gazze'de
Today,
sadece insanlar öldürülmüyor.
It's not only people who are being killed in
Gazze'de
Gaza,
hayvanlar
mind you.
hedef alınarak
Animals
öldürülüyor.
are being targeted and
Gazze'de
killed in Gaza.
tarım alanları, bahçeler,
In Gaza,
ağaçlar,
agricultural land,
otlar,
gardens,
Gazze'de
trees, grass,
asırlık zeytin
century-old
ağaçları
olive
yok
trees
ediliyor.
are being destroyed.
Gazze'de
In Gaza,
sular yok ediliyor.
water supplies are being
Kirletiliyor.
destroyed and
Gazze'de
polluted.
binalar, evler,
Buildings,
kütüphaneler,
homes,
hastaneler,
libraries,
okullar,
hospitals,
camiler,
schools, mosques,
kiliseler,
churches,
tarihi yapılar
and historical
bilinçli bir
structures
şekilde
in Gaza are being
yıkılıyor.
deliberately destroyed.
Gazze'nin toprağı insan içinde,
The soil
hayvan
of
içinde,
Gaza is being
bitki
rendered
içinde
useless for humans,
artık
for
işe
animals,
yaramaz
and for
hale
plants.
getiriliyor. İşte Sizlere bir başka fotoğraf daha.
Let me show you yet another
Şimdi size
photo.
soruyorum.
And let me ask you
Elimdeki
here.
şu fotoğrafın güvenlik arayışıyla ne ilgisi var?
What could this photo here
Bunun
possibly
adı
have to do with security
canlıya
concerns?
düşmanlık. Hayata
This is being
düşmanlık değil.
against
Bu kürsüden
life.
açık açık ifade ediyorum.
Don't you think?
Gazze'de
Let
bir
me
savaş
state
yok.
this openly from this podium.
Gazze'de
There is
iki
no war
taraftan
in Gaza.
söz edilemez.
We cannot possibly talk about the
Gazze'de bir
presence of
yanda
two sides in
elinde en
Gaza.
modern,
Because
en
in
öldürücü
Gaza, on
silahlar
one
olan
side, there is a
düzenli
regular
ordu,
army
diğer
with the most
tarafta ise
modern, most lethal
masum
weapons.
siviller,
And on the other
masum
hand, there are
çocuklar var.
innocent civilians,
Bu
innocent
terörle
children.
mücadele değildir.
This is not fight
Bu
against
7 Ekim
terrorism.
olayı öne sürülerek yürütülen bir işgal, tehcir,
This is an occupation,
sürgün,
deportation,
soykırım, daha
exile,
doğrusu
genocide,
bir toplu
and
kıyım
life
politikasıdır.
destruction, mass destruction
Bugün
policy
Gazze
carried out
Hamas
by invoking the
bahanesiyle
events of
yok
October the
edilirken
7th.
eş
Today,
zamanlı
while
olarak
Gaza is being destroyed
Hamas'ın
under the
yönetimde
pretext of
olmadığı
Hamas,
Batı Şeria'da
concurrently,
adım adım
simultaneously,
işgal
the
edilmekte,
West Bank, where Hamas
infazlarla
is not in
masum
power,
siviller
is also being occupied
katledilmektedir.
step by step,
Üstelik
and innocent
İsrail,
civilians are being
Gazze
massacred through
ve Batı
executions.
Şeria ile
Moreover,
sınırlı
Israel
kalmıyor,
is not limiting
Suriye'ye,
itself to Gaza and the
İran'a,
West Bank only.
Yemen'e,
By launching attacks
Lübnan'a
on Syria,
saldırılar
on Iran,
düzenleyerek
Yemen, and
bölge
Lebanon,
barışını da
Israel
tehdit ediyor.
is also
En son
threatening regional peace.
arabulucu
Just
Katar'da
recently, an Israeli
ateşkes
attack
müzakereleri
took place
için
against a
toplantı
delegation,
yapan heyete İsrail
meeting in
saldırısı
Qatar for
gerçekleşmiştir.
ceasefire negotiations.
Katar'a yönelik saldırı göstermiştir
The
ki
attack on Qatar
İsrail
has also
yönetimi
shown that
tamamen
the Israeli leadership
kontrolü
is now
kaybetmiştir.
completely out of control.
Netanyahu'nun barış yapmaya da rehineleri
Netanyahu
kurtarmaya da niyetinin
is
olmadığı
not obviously
bir kez daha
interested in forging
anlaşılmıştır.
peace or releasing
Sadece
the
komşuları değil,
hostages.
Orta Doğu'daki
Not only
tüm ülkeler
Israel's neighbors,
İsrail
but all
hükümetinin
countries in the Middle
pervasız
East are
tehditlerine
subject to the Israeli
muhatap oluyor.
government's reckless
Şunun da
threats.
farkına varalım.
And we must realize,
İsrail'in artan
following.
saldırganlığı sebebiyle Avrupa başta
due to
olmak
the
üzere
increasing
Batı'da
aggression of
2.
Israel
Dünya Savaşı sonrası
in Europe and
ortaya
the West
çıkan
in
değerler
general,
de
the values
çok
that
ağır
emerged after
yara
the Second
almıştır.
World War have been
En temel
eroded.
insan hakları, ifade
The
özgürlüğü,
most fundamental
basın
human rights,
özgürlüğü,
such as freedom of
gösteri ve
expression,
protesto
freedom of
özgürlüğü,
the press,
kadın
freedom of
hakları,
assembly and protest,
çocuk
women's
hakları,
rights, children's
demokrasi,
rights, democracy,
eşitlik,
equality,
adalet
and
gibi
justice
kavramlar
have
rafa
been
kaldırılmış.
shelved away.
Gelinen noktada
At this point,
hepimiz
we all
şu
have to
gerçeği
see
görmek zorundayız.
the following
Değerli
truth,
dostlar,
my dear friends.
vaat edilmiş topraklar
The Israeli
saplantısıyla
government,
hareket
driven by an
eden
obsession
İsrail
with the
yönetimi
promised lands,
yayılmacı bir
is
politikayla
openly threatening
bölge
regional
barışına
peace and
ve
the shared
insanlığın
values of
müşterek kazanımlarına kastetmektedir. 3 semavi dinin kutsal beldesi,
Three celestial
insanlığın
religions,
ortak mirası olan Kudüs-ü Şerif
Jerusalem
bu radikalizmin
all
doğrudan
three celestial
hedefi.
religions, and
vicdan sahibi
a common
Musevileri de
inherited
rahatsız eden,
holy place.
onların da tasvip
Al-Quds
etmediği
is
dahası
holy for all
tüm
three
dünyada
religions.
antisemitizmi körükleyen bu cinnet
This
hali
madness disturbs
artık
conscientious Jews.
daha
It
fazla
fuels anti-Semitism
devam
around the
edemez.
world. We cannot continue with this madness anymore.
Gazze'de ateşkes bir an önce sağlanmalı,
We have to have
saldırılar
ceasefire in Gaza
durmalı,
as soon as possible.
insani
Attacks
yardımların
should stop.
engelsiz girişine
Humanitarian aid
mutlaka
should be able to
izin
enter with
verilmelidir.
no obstacles.
Soykırım kadrosunun uluslararası
genocide
hukuka hesap vermesi
Team
temin
should be held
edilmelidir.
accountable vis-a-vis
İnşallah
international law.
bu mutlaka
And God willing,
gerçekleşecektir.
this will definitely
Gazze'de
happen.
yaşanan barbarlığa karşı
Vis-a-vis the
sesini
barbarity
yükseltmeyen,
taking place in
tavır
Gaza,
almayan herkes
everyone
bu
who is
vahşetin
keeping silent
sorumluluğuna ortak.
is accomplice to this
Buradan
barbarity.
bütün devlet ve
From
hükümet
here, I would
başkanlarına
like to call on
samimiyetle
all the heads
sesleniyorum.
of state and
Gün bugün.
government. Today is the
Gün
day.
insanlık adına Filistinli
Today
mazlumların
is the
yanında
day to stand firm alongside the oppressed Palestinians and alongside humanity.
Gazze'deki barbarlığa tepki gösterirken,
While your peoples back home are reacting to the
sizler de
barbarity in
adım
Gaza,
adım
do
cesaretinizi
show the
gösterin.
courage to take action here.
Çocukları büyüttüğü Gazze'ye
Fulfill your
karşı
humanitarian duty
insanlık
toward Gaza,
görevinizi
where
yerine
children
getirin.
are raising
Bu
children.
vesileyle dünyanın farklı
On
ülkelerinde
this occasion,
Gazze'li mazlumlara sahip çıkmak için meydanları dolduran
I would like to say
Gazze'li
the following.
masumlara
There
destek
are
olmak için
peoples all around the world who
denizlere
are taken to the
yelken açan
streets.
akademisyeniyle, sanatçısıyla,
Armed activists and
siyasetçisiyle,
volunteers from different countries
aktivistiyle,
of the world,
öğrencisiyle,
academicians,
tüm
students,
Filistin
journalists,
savunucularına
everyone, all
en
the
kalbi
defenders of
selamlarımı yolluyorum.
Palestine. I would like to say to them, thank you so much. And clear bows
Kıymetli
and
delegeler,
favorable winds
13
for
yıl
their
boyunca
actions.
sizlere
Esteemed
bu
delegation
kürsüden
members, for
komşumuz
13
Suriye'de
years,
yaşanan
I
zulümden
have spoken to you
ve
from this
çatışmalardan
platform about the oppression and conflicts in our
nasıl
neighbor
bugün
Syria.
Gazze'li mazlumlar için
Just as I
sesimizi
raise my voice
yükseltiyorsak,
today for the
13
oppressed
yıl
people of
süresince
Gaza,
de Suriyelilerin
likely for 13
feryatlarına
years,
dikkat
I
çek.
have also drawn attention to the
Burada onların
cries
da
of the Syrians,
sesi,
and
nefesi
here
oldu.
I became their voice
1 milyon
and
insanın
breath as well.
hayatına, milyonlarcasının da
The persecution
vatanlarını
that caused the
terk
deaths
etmesine
of 1
sebep olan
million
zulüm,
people and
8
that
Aralık
forced millions
devrimiyle
more to
birlikte
flee their
hamdolsun
homeland has,
artık
thankfully,
tarihe
become a
karıştı.
thing of the past.
Suriyeli
With the
kardeşlerimiz
December 8th
8
revolution.
Aralık
Our
tarihi
Syrian
itibariyle
brothers and sisters
yeni bir dönemin
opened the doors to a new
kapılarını
period
açtılar.
as of December the 8th.
Eli kanlı bir rejime karşı
I believe that the
mücadeleyi
people of
kazanan
Syria who
Suriye
fought against
halkı,
a bloodthirsty
inanıyorum ki
regime will
büyük
also be
bedeller
able to
ödeyerek
carry the victory
elde
they
ettikleri
achieved at
zaferi
great
de
cost
inşallah
to its
menziline
rightful place,
ulaştıracaktır.
God willing.
DAEŞ başta olmak üzere terörün
We'll
hiçbir
support
çeşidinin
with all our
olmadığı,
means the vision of
güvenliğin
a one
tesis
and
edildiği
unified Syria
bir
with
ve
no
bütün
forms of
Suriye
terrorism,
vizyonunu
especially
tüm
ISIS,
imkanlarımızla
being present.
destekleyeceğiz. Suriye'de istikrar
A free
kökleştikçe
Syria where security
hiç
is
şüphesiz
established is what we
bunun
want.
kazananı
As stability takes root in
Suriyelilerle
Syria,
birlikte
the
tüm
winners
komşu ülkeler,
for sure
tüm
will be
bölgemiz
all the neighboring
olacak.
countries, our entire region along
Körfez'deki
with Syrians.
kardeş ülkelere de
And the
Suriye'nin
brotherly countries in the
toparlanmasına
Gulf.
verdikleri katkılar
I would
için
like to thank them for their
teşekkürlerimi
contributions
iletiyorum.
for
Bizimle
Syria to
aynı
recuperate.
ilkeleri paylaşan tüm bölgesel
All the
ve
regional
uluslararası
and international
aktörlerle
actors who share the same
işbirliğimizi
principles with us,
inşallah
God
aynı
willing,
şekilde
we will continue
sürdüreceğiz.
with our cooperation with all those
Değerli dostlar,
actors in the same manner.
komşumuz
Esteemed
İran'la
friends,
ilgili nükleer dosyanın
we hope
bir an
that the
evvel
nuclear
diplomasi
issue with our
yoluyla
neighbor Iran will
çözülmesini
be resolved through
temenni
diplomacy as soon as possible.
unutulmamalıdır
It should
ki
not be forgotten
bölgemiz
that our
yeni bir
region
krizi
cannot
daha
tolerate
kaldıramaz.
yet another crisis.
Komşumuz Irak'ın istikrarı,
The stability,
güvenliği
security
ve
and
refahı
prosperity of our neighbor
bölgemizin
Iraq
selameti
are
bakımından
extremely important
fevkalade
for the well-being
önemlidir.
of our region.
Kalkınma yolu projesi gibi kolektif refahı
In this
önceleyen
regard, we attach great
stratejik
importance to
hamlelere
strategic
bu
moves
bakımdan
based on stability
büyük
and
önem
prosperity,
atfediyoruz.
such as the
Kuzeyde
development path
her
project.
ikisi de komşumuz
In the
olan
north, we are
Rusya
hosting
ve
with
Ukrayna
great
arasında
enthusiasm the Istanbul process
İstanbul
between
sürecine
Russia and
büyük bir
Ukraine,
iştiyakla
both of
ev
which
sahipliği
are
yapıyoruz.
our neighbors.
Doğrudan görüşmeler sayesinde
Through
çok
direct
sayıda
talks, we
esirin
facilitated
ve
the
naaşın
exchange of
mübadelesine
several prisoners and
aracılık etti.
corpses, and we
Taraflar
worked to
arasında
identify the
barış
modalities
müzakerelerinin modalitelerini
of peace
belirlemeye çalıştık.
negotiations between the
Unutmayın,
parties.
savaşın kazananı
forget,
adil bir barışın
There
kaybedeni
is no
olmaz
winner of
şiarıyla önümüzdeki
and no
dönemde
losers
de
of a just
ateşkes
peace.
için
So with this
çaba
motto in mind, in
göstermeye
the coming days
devam
also,
edeceğiz.
we will continue to work hard for a
Azerbaycan
peaceful
ve
ceasefire.
Ermenistan arasında barışın
Meanwhile,
tesisi için
We have
tarafları
encouraged the parties
en başından
from the
bu
very
yana
beginning to establish peace
cesaretlendirdik.
between Azerbaijan
8
and
Ağustos
Armenia.
tarihinde iki ülke arasında kalıcı
We are
barışa
pleased
giden
that steps were
adımların
taken on
atılmasından
August the 8th,
memnuniyet duyuyoruz.
steps that will enable the
Azerbaycan
establishment of
Cumhurbaşkanı
lasting peace
Sayın
between the two
Aliyev ile
countries.
Ermenistan Başbakanı Sayın Paşinyan başta olmak üzere sürece katkıda bulunan Amerikan Başkanı Sayın Trump'ı burada bir kez daha tebrik ediyorum. Bu vesileyle ülkemizle Ermenistan arasındaki normalleşme sürecinin kendi rayında ilerlediğini de ifade etmek isterim. Diğer bir arabuluculuk faaliyetimiz olan Ankara süreci kapsamında Somali ile Etiyopya arasındaki ihtilafın halline yönelik gayretlerimizi sürdürüyoruz. Tarafların bu girişimi hızla başarıyla neticelendirmelerini temenni ediyorum. Değerli delegeler, Karadeniz'de güvenliğin teminatı olan Montreux Sözleşmesi'ni tam 89 yıldır tarafsızlık içinde harfiyen uygulamaktayız. Ege Denizi'ni ve Doğu Akdeniz'i ilgili tüm tarafların meşru menfaatlerine riayet edilen bir istikrar ve refah havzası olarak görmek istiyoruz. Enerji ve çevre başta olmak üzere her konuda yapıcı işbirliğine hazırız. Komşularımızdan da aynısını bekliyoruz. Bu vesileyle Doğu Akdeniz'de Türkiye'yi ve Kuzey Kıbrıs Türk Cumhuriyeti'ni dışlayan projelerin başarılı olamayacağını burada özellikle vurgulamak istiyorum. Kıbrıs adasının batısında Türkiye'nin hak ve yetkileri, adanın etrafındaki alanlarda ise Kıbrıs Türklerinin meşru hakları var. Daha evvel de teklif ettiğimiz Doğu Akdeniz Konferansı müşterek bir zeminin bulunmasına katkı yapacak. Kıbrıs meselesinin çözümü daha önce defalarca denenmiş, ancak Rum tarafının uzlaşmaz tutumu nedeniyle tüketilmiş federasyon modeli üzerine bina edilemez. Kıbrıs adasında iki ayrı devlet ve iki ayrı halk vardır. Kıbrıs Türkleri adanın eşit sahibidir ve azınlık olmayı kabul etmeyecek. Uluslararası toplum, Kıbrıs Türklerinin yarım asırdır maruz bırakıldıkları haksız izolasyona artık son vermelidir. Son 3 Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'nda yaptığım çağrıyı bugün bir kere daha tekrarlıyor. Uluslararası toplumu Kuzey Kıbrıs Türk Cumhuriyeti'ni tanımaya, diplomatik, siyasi ve ekonomik ilişkiler kurmaya davet ediyor. Sayın Başkan, Sayın Başkan, değerli üyeler, önümüzdeki dönemde Türkiye-Avrupa Birliği ilişkilerinde yeni bir başlangıç ve vizyon arzuluyoruz. Bu vizyon günü kurtaran değil, ufku yeniden tayin eden, ortak geleceğimizi şekillendiren bir vizyon olmalıdır. Bunun için elbette Avrupa Birliği'nin de bizim kadar istekli ve kararlı olması mühimdir. Net güvenlik sağlayıcısı bir ülke olarak Birleşmiş Milletler, NATO, AGİ ve Avrupa Birliği'nin harekat ve misyonlarına katkılarımızı sürdürüyoruz. 2026 yılındaki NATO zirvesini Ankara'da toplayacağız. NATO müttefikimiz Amerika Birleşik Devletleri ile ilişkilerimizi ticaret, yatırım, enerji ve savunma sanayi başta olmak üzere birçok alanda güçlendiriyoruz. Ata yurdumuz Orta Asya'daki kardeş ülkelerimizin barış, istikrar ve refahı bizim için vazgeçilmezdir. Türk Devletleri Teşkilatımız bölgesel bir çatı olmanın ötesine geçerek küresel bir aktör olma yolunda ilerliyor. Köklü beşeri bağlarımızın olduğu Balkanlarda barışın ve istikrarın sürmesi için yoğun gayret içindeyiz. Temmuz ayında ihdas ettiğimiz Balkan Barış Platformu bu yöndeki çabalarımızın en yeni örneği. waPo komutanlığı görevini de bu yıl Ekim ayında bir kez daha üstleneceğiz. Afganistan'daki yönetimin toplumu kuşatıcı, dikkate alan bir anlayış sergilemesi temel arzumuz. Yeniden toparlanma sürecinde uluslararası toplumun Afgan halkını yalnız bırakmaması, Türkiye ve Türk milleti olarak Afgan kardeşlerimizin her daim yanında olmaya devam edeceğiz. Değerli dostlar, Güney Asya'da barış ve istikrarın muhafazasını son derece önemli görüyoruz. Nisan ayında Pakistan ve Hindistan arasındaki çatışmaya varan bu gerilimde varılan ateşkesten memnuniyet duyuyoruz. İki ülke arasında terörle mücadelede işbirliğini önemsiyoruz. Keşmir meselesinin Birleşmiş Milletler Güvenlik Konseyi kararları temelinde Keşmirli kardeşlerimizin beklentileri ekseninde diyalogla çözülmesini destekliyoruz. Afrika kıtasıyla eğitimden sağlığa, altyapıdan ticarete kadar geniş bir yelpazede ilişkilerimiz yıldan yıla güçleniyor. Somali'nin terörle mücadelesine gereken her türlü desteği verirken insani yardım faaliyetlerimizi de sürdürüyor. Sudan'da 2 yılı aşkın süredir devam eden çatışma ortamı bizleri ziyadesiyle üzmektedir. Sudan'da akan kanın durması ve sürdürülebilir barışın tesis edilmesi uluslararası toplumun ortak sorumluluğu. Bizim bu yöndeki çabalarımız devam edecek. Büyük Göller bölgesi yıllardır süren istikrarsızlık ve çatışmalardan ziyadesiyle müzdarip olmuştur. Kongo Demokratik Cumhuriyeti'nin doğusunda yaşanan çatışmalar bir an önce çözülmelidir. Amerika'nın arabuluculuğu ve Katar'ın kolaylaştırıcılığında yürütülen gayretleri samimiyetle destekliyoruz. Batı Afrika'da bilhassa sahil havzasında artan terör faaliyetlerini de endişeyle takip ediyoruz. Tarihi bağlarımızın bulunduğu bu bölge halklarının huzura ve istikrara kavuşmaları için çabalarımız devam edecek. İlhamını çift başlı Selçuklu Kartalı'ndan alan, bizim de 360 derecelik yaklaşımla yürüttüğümüz Türk dış politikasında Asya ülkeleriyle ilişkilerimiz büyük stratejik öneme sahip. Yeniden Asya girişimimiz çerçevesinde ASEAN başta olmak üzere bölgesel kuruluşlarla angajmanımız giderek derinleşiyor. Latin Amerika ve Karayipler bölgesiyle münasebetlerimizi ortaklık ruhuyla ve kazan yaklaşımıyla geliştirmeye büyük önem atfediyoruz. Bölgedeki tüm ülkelerle kurmuş olduğumuz dostane bağları daha ileriye taşıma irademiz bakidir. Kıymetli delegeler, uluslararası ticarette artan korumacılık eğilimleri ve tedarik zincirlerinde yaşanan kırılmalar dünya ekonomisinde esaslı değişimlere yol açıyor. Mevcut sınamalarla başarılı mücadele için Dünya Ticaret Örgütü'nün yer aldığı kurallara dayalı uluslararası ticaretin reforme edilmesini destekliyoruz. Ucuz, güvenli ve sürdürülebilir enerjiye erişimi, özellikle gelişmekte olan ülkelerin kalkınma hedeflerinin gerçekleştirilmesi için vazgeçilmez buluyorum. Çin'den Avrupa'ya uzanan ve stratejik önemi haiz pazar geçişli Doğu-Batı Ortak Koridoru projesini ilerletiyoruz. Modern ulaştırma altyapımız ve Bakü-Tiflis-Kars hattıyla dünya ticaretinin gelişimine katkı sunuyoruz. Tabiata saygılı bir gelecek inşa etme hedefiyle çıktığımız yolda 2053 net sıfır emisyon hedefine doğru kararlılıkla ilerliyoruz. Eşim Emine Erdoğan'ın himayesinde yürüyen sıfır atık hareketinin tüm dünyada her yıl dalga dalga büyüyen, daha fazla insana ve kalbe ulaşan bir farkındalık halkasına dönüştüğünü görmek bizim için ayrı bir bahtiyarlıktır. Bu süreçte gelişmiş ülkelerin sorumluluklarını yerine getirmesi artık bir tercihten öte yükümlülük haline gelmiştir. Dünyada en fazla kalkınma yardımı yapan ülkelerden biri olarak Birleşmiş Milletler'in sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerine ulaşılması için çaba harcıyoruz. 2030 hedeflerine erişmek ve dünyanın dört bir yanındaki yüz milyonlarca insanı onurlu yaşama kavuşturmak için küresel finansman mimarisinin kimseyi geride bırakmama anlayışıyla uyumlu hale getirilmesini savunuyoruz. Burada şunu da özellikle dikkatinizi çekerek söylemek istiyorum. Biz jeopolitik sınamalarla uğraşırken İnsanlık yapay zeka alanında olağanüstü bir sıçramaya şahitlik ediyor. Çığır açan bu teknolojilerin dönüştürücü gücü ve sunduğu nimetlerden hiçbir toplumun mahrum bırakılmaması gerekiyor. Yapay zeka teknolojileri yeni bir tahakküm aracı olarak değil, insanlığın lehine kullanılmalıdır. Ev sahipliğini yaptığımız en az gelişmiş ülkeler için Birleşmiş Milletler Teknoloji Bankası dijital ve teknolojik açığın kapatılmasında kritik rol oynuyor. Hazırladığımız ve evrensel mutabakatla yakında imzaya açacağımız dijital dünyada çocuk hakları sözleşmesinin bu alanda küresel bir farkındalık oluşturacağına inanıyor. Çabalarımıza güçlü desteğinizi bekliyoruz. Diğer taraftan ırkçılık, yabancı karşıtlığı ve bilhassa İslam düşmanlığının vahim boyutlara ulaştığı günümüzde bir arada yaşama kültürünü tehdit eden bu akımlarla mücadele insanlık için zaruret halini almıştır. Medeniyetler İttifakı Yüksek Temsilcisi Sayın Moratinos'un Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Sekreterinin İslamofobi ile mücadele özel elçisi olarak da atanması kıymetlidir. Geçen sene burada ifade ettiğim gibi aile kurumu günümüzde daha önce hiç olmadığı kadar tehdit altındadır. Kadın ve erkekten oluşan aileyi savunmak aynı zamanda insanı, fıtratı, yaşamı ve geleceği savunmak demektir. Türkiye olarak artan saldırılar karşısında aileyi savunmaya devam edeceğiz. Kıymetli delegeler, insanlığın bir daha savaş felaketi yaşamaması için kurulan Birleşmiş Milletler'in kökleri içinde bulunduğumuz karanlık döneme ışık tutacak değerlerle doludur. Genel Sekreter Sayın Guterres'in teşkilatımızı etkin ve verimli hale getirmek amacıyla başlattığı Birleşmiş Milletler 80 girişimine desteğimiz tamdır. Bu girişimin Birleşmiş Milletler'in tüm faaliyetlerini daha da güçlendirecek bir süreç olarak başarıya ulaşmasını temenni ediyorum. Bu sürece İstanbul'u bir Birleşmiş Milletler merkezi haline getirme vizyonumuzdan da hareketle güçlü destek vermeye hazırız. 80. yılda Birleşmiş Milletler'i kuruluş ruhuna döndürecek adımları atmak hepimizin ortak sorumluluğudur. Biz güçlünün haklı olduğu değil, haklının güçlü olduğu bir sistem kurulana kadar dünya 5'ten büyüktür demeye devam edeceğiz. Görevimiz sistemi terk etmek değil, onarmak, yeniden işler hale getirmek. Hiç şüphesiz daha adil bir dünya mümkündür. Türkiye daha adil bir dünyanın inşası için mücadelesini sabırla devam ettirecektir. Rabbim yar ve yardımcımız olsun diyorum. Hepinizi bir kez daha sevgi ve saygıyla selamlıyorum. Kalın sağlıcakla.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Turkey, the Assembly will hear an address by Her Excellency Dina Ercilia Boluarte Segara, President of the Republic of Peru. I request protocol to escort Her Excellency and invite her to address the Assembly.
Señora Presidenta de la Asamblea
Madam
General,
President of the General Assembly, Annalena Baerbock,
Señor Secretario General
Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres,
Señoras
ladies
y señores,
and gentlemen,
Jefes de Estado,
heads of state,
y señoras y señores presentes en esta magna
ladies
asamblea.
and gentlemen present
El
here
Perú
in this august forum.
Es el centro y cuna de
Peru is
grandes
the center
civilizaciones
and cradle
milenarias,
of great millennial
siendo la
civilizations,
última
the last
el
of which
imperio de
was
los
the
Incas,
Inca Empire,
que dejó
which
un
left
legado
us
de
a
grandeza.
legacy of greatness.
Somos herederos
We are
asimismo
also heirs
del
of
virreinato
the
del Perú, que
viceroyalty
abarcó
of
las
Peru,
2/3
which
partes
encompassed
de
2/3
América
of
del
South
Sur.
America.
Somos un país mestizo,
We are a mestizo
mezcla
nation,
fundamental
a
entre
fundamental
hispanos
mix
y
between
andinos,
Hispanic and Andean
orgulloso
peoples,
de ser heredero
proud to
de
be
los
the
más
heirs
grandes
of the two
imperios de
greatest
Europa y
empires
América
of Europe
del
and
siglo
America
XVI.
of the 16th century.
El pueblo peruano
The
es
Peruvian
hoy
people today
resiliente,
are resilient,
emprendedor, solidario,
entrepreneurial,
amante
supportive,
de la paz,
and lovers of
la
peace,
libertad y la
freedom,
democracia.
and democracy.
Nuestros grandes
Our great writers,
escritores, Mario Vargas
Mario
Llosa
Vargas Llosa
y José
and
María
José María
Arguedas,
Arguedas,
compartieron la idea
shared the idea
de que el Perú
that
es
Peru
país
is a
de
country
todas
of
las sangres.
all bloods.
Nuestra identidad expresa
Our identity
creativamente que somos
creatively
la unidad
expresses that we are
de los
the
diversos,
unity of the diverse,
unidos bajo la misma
united
roja y
under the
blanca
same
bandera
red and
peruana.
white Peruvian flag.
En nuestro país
In our country,
viven los pueblos
native
originarios y los
peoples
pueblos
and
del
peoples
mundo
of the
en
world
paz
live together
y unidad
in peace and
como una
unity
gran síntesis del
as a
Perú.
great synthesis
País en el que vivió y trabajó
Peru,
durante
the
40
country
años
in
el Papa
which
León
Pope Leo
XIV,
XIV lived
nacionalizado
and worked in
peruano,
for 40
por su
years,
profundo
a
amor a
naturalized
nuestra
Peruvian
gente,
because of his deep love
tanto
for
por
our
su
people,
carácter solidario
both
y
for his
pacífico
supportive
como
as well
por
as
su fe
his
católica
peaceful
y
disposition
cristiana.
and his Catholic and Christian faith.
Todos los estudios señalan
All studies
que somos el
indicate
país más
that we are the
emprendedor
most
del mundo,
entrepreneurial
razón
country in the world,
por la cual después de la
which is
pandemia del
why, after the
COVID-19, que por
COVID-19
una
pandemic,
pésima
that
administración
due to
gubernamental
poor government
alcanzó
administration,
más de 2
claimed
millones
more
de
than 2
fallecidos.
million lives.
Nos hemos empezado a
But we have
recuperar
begun
logrando
to
hoy
recover.
más de 17 meses
And
de
today,
crecimiento
we look back on more
consecutivo
than 17
de
months
nuestra
of
economía.
consecutive
Hemos
economic growth.
derrotado la
We
recesión
have
y la
overcome the
inflación
recession and
originada por la
inflation
violencia
caused by
política
political violence
y por la
and by
corrupción.
corruption,
Un golpe de
a
Estado
failed
fallido
coup d'etat,
y la fuga de más de
and the
20
flight
mil
of more
millones
than
de
$20
dólares
billion
entre los años
that was
2021
between
y
2021 and
2023.
2023.
Hemos recuperado la
We
confianza
have
de la inversión nacional,
regained
pero
the trust of
también
national but also
del extranjero,
of foreign
y
investment,
abrazado
and
a la
we
libertad.
have embraced freedom.
Somos un país solvente
We
y
are a
estable
solvent and a stable
por el
country.
golpe de Estado de diciembre del
Because of the coup
2022
attempt
que
of December
pretendía
2022,
instaurar una
which sought to
dictadura
establish a
sometiendo
dictatorship
a todos los
by
poderes del
forcing all
Estado,
branches of the state
tuve que asumir
into submission, I had
constitucionalmente
to
la presidencia
constitutionally
de la
assume the
República.
presidency of the Republic.
Desde ese entonces
Since that
se
date,
estableció una narrativa
narrative
por la cual
was
el
established
golpista
by which
se
the
convirtió
coup
en
plotter
víctima y la
became a
presidenta
victim, and
que
the
asumió
president, who
constitucional y
constitutionally
legalmente
and
la
legally
presidencia,
assumed the presidency,
fue acusada
was
por algunas
accused
voces
by
de
some
golpista
quarters
y
of being a
usurpadora.
coup plotter and
La
usurper.
mentira trastocada en verdad
Lies turned into
y
truth,
la verdad en
and truth
mentira.
turned into lies.
Este es uno de los temas
This is
que
one
nuestro,
of the
de nuestro
issues
tiempo.
of our time.
La construcción
The
de
building
narrativas
of false
falsas que
narratives
buscan armar
to
proyectos
attempt to defend
políticos antidemocráticos.
anti-democratic
La
political
reflexión
projects.
es que las
The
ideologías
thinking
de
goes
odio,
that ideologies of
con sus
hatred,
proyectos de
with their
estados
projects of
fallidos
failed states
que crecen
that
como
grow
estados
into all-powerful
todopoderosos,
states,
requieren para
require,
imponerse una
in order
narrativa
to impose
falsa
their will,
para
a
lograr
false
su
narrative
objetivo por medio
in order to
de la
achieve their
violencia que
objectives
en el
through
poder
violence, and who,
aplasta las
once in
libertades,
power, crush
aplasta los
freedoms,
medios de comunicación,
silence
a la
the press
oposición
and
democrática,
democratic opposition,
viola los derechos humanos
violate
y da
human
inicio
rights,
al
and
control,
begin to control,
confiscación
to
y
confiscate,
expropiación
and
de
to
las empresas
expropriate
privadas,
private companies,
creando una burocracia
creating
corrupta
a corrupt
que
bureaucracy
destruye la
that
economía,
destroys the economy,
la sociedad y la
society,
moral pública.
and public morality.
El primer paso
The
para
first
todo
step
ello
for achieving
es
all
la
of this
construcción
is to build
de un
a
relato en el
narrative
que se
in order
miente,
to
se
lie,
engaña
to
y
deceive,
se
and
manipula.
to manipulate.
La ideología del odio de
The
clases
ideology
es
of
muy
class hatred
hábil
is very
en
skillful
trastocar la
at
realidad y
distorting
construir
reality
falsos
and
relatos,
building false
pues
narratives,
utiliza el método
because it uses
totalitario
the
de repetir
totalitarian
ad
method of
infinitum
repeating a
una
lie
mentira,
ad infinitum,
como se hiciera
as
en
was
el
done
mundo
in the world
antes de la Segunda
before
Guerra
the
Mundial y
Second World
como se
War,
viene
and
haciendo
as is happening
nuevamente
again
porque el
today, because
totalitarismo se
totalitarianism
renueva, se
renews
presenta con otros
itself, presents
rostros,
itself with other
porque lo
faces,
que sigue siendo una grave amenaza
but it remains
para
a
los
serious
países
threat
y
to
para el
countries
mundo.
and to the world.
El cínico relato se ve
The cynical
reforzado
narrative is
por el
reinforced
intervencionismo
by
en los
interventionism
asuntos
in the
internos de los
internal affairs
países,
of countries,
apoyando y
supporting
difundiendo
and spreading
falsedades
falsehoods
para
to
destruir la
destroy democracy
democracia y
and
eliminar
eliminate
la libertad.
freedom.
En el Perú
In Peru,
hemos superado
we have overcome
una fuerte, organizada y
strong,
persistente violencia
organized and
política que
persistent political
pretendía
violence
la
that
vuelta al
sought the
gobierno del
return of the
golpista,
coup plotters
y desde el
government,
año
and since
2024 se ha
2024,
logrado avanzar en el
progress has been made
restablecimiento de
in
la
restoring
estabilidad
stability
y
and
la
confidence,
confianza, razón por la cual
and This
La
is why
economía
the
peruana
Peruvian
logró crecer
economy managed
este
to
año
grow this year by
3,3% y en el
3.3%.
presente año 2025
And
está
in the
superando
current
un
year,
crecimiento del
2025, is exceeding
3,5%,
3.5% growth.
previéndose que el
With
año
forecasts that in
2026 se
2026,
mantenga la tendencia
the
de la
trend of
expansión
economic growth will
económica.
continue.
El gobierno
The
garantiza
government
3
guarantees
años de
3 years
crecimiento
of
económico
economic growth,
encabezando las
being the leader
cifras en
in
Sudamérica.
South America.
La inflación que
Inflation
tenemos
is
es inferior al
below
2% anual.
2% annually.
Las reservas internacionales son
International
superiores
reserves
a los
amount
88
to more
mil
than
millones
$88
de
billion,
dólares. Y nuestra
and
moneda
our currency
se mantiene
remains
estable y
stable,
se
and
fortalece
it's
cada día
getting
más.
stronger every day.
Nuestra deuda externa
Our
es menor
external
al
debt is less than
32,2% del PBI,
32.2% of GDP,
una de las más
one of
bajas
the
de
lowest
América
in the
y del
Americas
mundo.
and in the world.
Nuestro déficit
And our
fiscal
fiscal
este
deficit
año
this
será
year
de
will be
2,2%
2.2% annually.
anual. Señora Presidenta de esta magna Asamblea,
Madam President of this
el 24
magnificent
de
General
octubre se
Assembly,
creó
on
las
October
Naciones
24th,
Unidas,
the UN was
después
created
de la
after World
Segunda Guerra
War II,
Mundial, cuando se logró
when one
derrotar a
of
uno
the
de los
greatest
mayores proyectos
totalitarian
políticos
political
totalitarios
projects
construido
built
bajo una
on an
ideología de
ideology
odio
of hatred,
que produjo el más grave genocidio
leading
en la
to the most
historia
serious
de la
genocide in
humanidad,
human history,
el
the
Holocausto,
Holocaust,
que
was
jamás
defeated.
que
And this is
jamás
something that we
debemos
must
olvidar.
never, I say never,
Esa nefasta
forget.
guerra causó la
That
muerte
dreadful war
de 60
caused the
millones
death
de
of
seres
60
humanos.
million human beings.
Toda ideología de odio,
All
el odio de
ideologies of
clases
hate,
y su
class
elevación
hatred,
a
and
principio y
its
motor de la
elevation as a
historia,
principle and
el odio
driver
racial,
of history,
el
racial hatred,
nacionalista, el
nationalist
odio
hatred,
religioso,
religious hatred,
étnico, el
ethnic
odio a
hatred,
las
hatred
mujeres,
against
entre
women,
otros,
amongst others,
son los
are the
causantes de los
causes
peores
for the
crímenes
worst
en la
crimes
historia
committed
humana.
in human history.
Las ideologías de odio
Ideologies of
construyen
hatred
relatos como verdades
build narratives
absolutas
as absolute
que
truths
instrumentalizan a las
that
personas y a
instrumentalize
los
people
pueblos.
and nations.
La constitución
The
política de mi
political
patria
constitution of my
afirma
homeland,
que la
Peru,
defensa
affirms that the
de la
defense
persona
of
humana
the
y su
individual
dignidad
and their
es el
dignity
fin
is
supremo
the
de
supreme
la
goal
sociedad
of
y del
society
Estado.
and of the state.
El Perú rechaza en
Peru,
consecuencia los dos
Rejects
principales
the two
relatos de odio
principal
en el
hate
mundo,
narratives in the world,
el odio de clases y
namely
el odio
class hatred
religioso,
and religious
origen
hatred.
de guerras.
These are the
y
origins
violencia
of
humana.
wars and
En el
inhumane
Perú
violence.
hemos sufrido
In Peru,
más de 20
we
años
suffered
de
for
un
more than
terrorismo
20 years
mesiánico,
from a
dogmático,
messianic,
violento y
dogmatic,
genocida
violent and
que le
genocidal
costó la vida a
terrorism
más de
that cost the
70,000
lives of more than
peruanos.
70,000
El
Peruvians.
terrorista odia las
The terrorist
elecciones y el
hates
derecho
elections
ciudadano
and the citizens'
a
right
elegir y a
to
ser
choose
elegido.
and to be
Cuando participa,
and to stand for
lo
election.
hace para
When they
destruir la democracia
participate, they do so
desde
to
adentro.
destroy democracy from
Sin
within.
embargo,
However,
el relato que se ha querido
the narrative
imponer
that
es
they
una
wanted
mentira
to
flagrante.
impose is a flagrant lie.
Las Fuerzas Armadas
The
y
armed forces
policiales
and the police
que defendieron la
who
vida
defended
y
the
la
life
libertad de
and
los
the freedom
peruanos
of Peruvians
son
are
acusados
now
de violar
accused
los
of
derechos
violating
humanos,
human rights.
convirtiéndose así
Thus,
los
the
héroes,
heroes who
defensores de la
defended
vida,
life,
la
democracy,
democracia y la
and freedom
libertad en
are
victimarios
turned into
y los
victimizers,
terroristas
and the terrorists
en víctimas.
are turned into
Así,
victims.
Los héroes que
In this way,
defendieron
the
la
heroes who
democracia
defended
son
democracy are
perseguidos
being persecuted
en
in
juicios que se
trials
prolongan
that drag on
por
for
décadas, mientras que
decades,
los
while the
terroristas
terrorists
son
are
indemnizados y
compensated
considerados
and considered
víctimas.
victims.
El mundo al revés. La ONU, Presidenta,
This is the world in
ha
reverse.
sido un hito
The
fundamental en el
UN was
siglo
a
XX.
fundamental milestone in the
Pero en el
20th
siglo
century,
XXI
but in the
debemos
21st
estar
century,
más
we must
atentos.
be more vigilant.
Es nuestro deber
It is our
impedir
duty
que el mundo se
to prevent the world
precipite
from plunging into new genocides and new violence. It is not acceptable in a civilized world that one country invade another using a false narrative to justify a war that first and foremost attacks the civilian population. It is not acceptable to slaughter civilians, to capture hundreds of young people, women, and even children, and use them as hostages. We live under the threat of international organized crime. In Peru, international crime based on extortion uses terrorist methods such as bomb attacks to submit citizens to its will. These criminal organizations that use weapons of war have created financial mechanisms to launder blood-stained money, sending large sums back to their countries of origin. They seek to normalize this violence, which requires, in order to be defeated, recognition by the UN as terrorist organizations and new national and international legislation to stop them being a threat to the democratic system and to the development of peoples. It is also imperative that we act against drug trafficking and illegal mining that destroys the environment, pollutes rivers, and condemns peoples and individuals to slavery. International crime has subjected thousands of women taken from their home countries through violence and deception and being exploited and deprived of their freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living through times that recall the darkest chapters of our modern history, and Peru is convinced that the world does not need less UN, but more and a better UN, one that is in tune with the times, in times in which ideologies of hatred that cause and cause so much damage to humanity have taken refuge in lies, in misinformation, and which have penetrated democratic societies. Peru, as a founding member, is committed to an open multilateral system based on international law and the principles of the UN Charter. And we see in the UN the pillar of the model that has brought peace and prosperity. But we have to look at what's happening around us in the world. At this time, as we're meeting here, in other parts of the world, they are killing children, girls, boys, innocent people. Prosperity will only come if we are united and work together. And we have to adapt to new threats. Each of our countries has the duty to make their contribution towards finding solutions to the problems that we all face together. And my country is striving to do this. But the interconnection of our societies and economies means that it is only through international cooperation that we can resolve the crises which we face. If we do not reform the United Nations, our common home, to restore representativeness and effectiveness to its action, then we run the very serious risk of seeing one of the most precious instruments that the international community has for world stability disappearing. For this reason, Peru supports the work of the UN80 initiative, launched by the Secretary-General, placing particular emphasis on the need to refocus the organization on its fundamental functions, bringing it closer to the needs of peoples, and at the same time making it more efficient. UN80 must be an opportunity to strengthen multilateralism and ensure that the organization is better prepared to achieve its essential goals. This reform can only truly become fully effective if it is complemented by a transformation in UN governance that prevents institutional stalemates when it comes to decision-making, while ensuring its suitability. Ladies and gentlemen, in Peru, our government is working to meet its commitments, both to our citizens as well as to the international community, facing the threat of organized crime resulting from the collapse of tyrannical governments that led to migration to other countries. This is true of our country. From day one, my government has fought to restore governance in the country and to defeat polarization and violence. In Peru, there is full separation of powers, the rule of law, respect for freedom and human rights. My government is the most stable of the last 5 years, during which 5 presidents have succeeded one another. We are fighting for citizen security, facing crime that takes advantage of the rise in the price of gold and drug trafficking. We have achieved positive, verifiable results in these areas. We are working to strengthen human capital. We are fighting child malnutrition and anemia, and we are building schools and hospitals throughout the country, which has not been done in recent years. The priority is children, women, and the Peruvian family. We are modernizing the country's infrastructure, ports, airports, roads, bridges, designing an economy that is better connected to the world, as well as a firm policy for fighting corruption. Our goal is to guarantee free and impartial elections, defeating the attempt of a violent minority that seeks their failure. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations organization has always been present in the modern history of my country, particularly in its most difficult moments. Similarly to what is happening elsewhere in the world, and despite our efforts, Peru today finds its democratic institutions and the rule of law under attack by the polarization of politics, the cause and consequence of the return of extremist violence. We suffer from the scourge of transnational organized terrorist crime, which causes deaths, attacks, insecurity, and drug trafficking that destroys the social fabric. We face the threat of climate change that is destroying our Amazon, causing the melting of our glaciers, and putting our biodiversity at risk. We promote inclusive and sustainable growth in the context of opposing powers. But none of these problems is merely national, but global. This is why
que las Naciones
we need
Unidas
the United Nations
vuelva a ser
to
un
once
ágora del
again
diálogo y
be
la
a forum
cooperación.
for dialogue and
Deseo recordar el
cooperation.
legado del
To
embajador
recall
Javier
the
Pérez de
legacy of
Cuellar,
Ambassador Javier
quien
Pérez de
logró
Cuellar,
ejercer
who
una acción
managed to do
relevante
relevant
de la
work in the
organización
organization
a pesar de la
despite the
Guerra
Cold
Fría.
War.
Con ese ejemplo
With that example in mind,
y en el apego de nuestra
and in
región
view
a
of
los
our region's
propósitos de la
adherence
Carta
to
y en
the
aras
purposes of the Charter,
de una mejor
and in order to
representación,
ensure better
creemos que es
representation,
tiempo de
we
que
believe it is
quien
time for the
ocupe la
next
próxima
Secretary
Secretaría
General
General provenga de
come from Latin
Latinoamérica.
America.
Señoras
Ladies and
y
gentlemen,
señores, el Perú está comprometido en
Peru
lograr
is
que esta
committed to
Asamblea
ensuring
General
that this General Assembly
no sea una simple
this year is not
efemérides,
a mere commemoration,
sino la reafirmación
but
de
the
nuestro
reaffirmation
compromiso
of our commitment
hacia una acción
to
colectiva
collective action
que revitalice
that
a las
will
Naciones
revitalize the
Unidas
United
como
Nations as
herramienta
a
que
tool
apoye
that
la
supports
paz
peace
y la unidad
and
global,
global
así
unity
como el
as well
desarrollo.
as development.
Tenemos que ser firmes
We must
en la
stand
verdad
firm
frente a los relatos
in
que
the
la
truth, in the
escamotean,
face of narratives
la
that try to conceal it,
pervierten o
pervert
mienten
it, or
abiertamente
openly
con el
lie
fin de
in
ocultar
order to hide agendas
agendas que no
that do
corresponden
not
a nuestro
correspond
tiempo
to our
y
time,
mucho menos
much less
al
to the
destino de la
destiny
humanidad.
of humanity.
Por ello,
For this reason,
es imperativo
it is
fortalecer
essential
la verdad
that we
frente a los
strengthen
relatos
truth against
basados
narratives
en
that
el
are based
odio,
on
la
hatred,
mentira
the
repetida
lie
que busca
repeated
imponerse
that seeks to
y que
impose
solo
itself and
engendra
only
destrucción.
leads to destruction.
Pese a todos los
But
obstáculos,
despite all of these
la
obstacles,
verdad
truth
se abre
will
paso
find a
y
way,
nos hace
and
libres.
truth will set us free.
Paz
Peace
y unidad
and
para el
unity
Perú y el
for
mundo.
Peru and for the
Buenas
world,
escuchas del planeta.
for all those on the
Kuskayan
planet.
Yankasun, ama Chiknikuspa, ama Yuyakuspa, buscando el desarrollo de nuestro pueblo.
Let us seek the
Señoras,
development of our
presidentes y
peoples,
presidentes del mundo.
presidents of the world.
Juntos trabajemos,
Together, let us work together
sin odiarnos,
without hating one
queriéndonos,
another.
procurando el desarrollo
Let us
de
work
nuestros
for the
pueblos.
development of our peoples.
Sí a la vida,
Yes to
no a
life,
la violencia
no to
y
violence,
no a la guerra.
and no
Muchas
to
gracias.
war. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Peru. The Assembly will hear an address by His Majesty King Abdullah II Ibn al-Hussein, King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. I request protocol to escort His Majesty and invite him to address the Assembly.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Madam President, Mr. Secretary General,
in the name of
Your
God, the
Excellencies.
compassionate, the merciful.
Another year, another UN General Assembly, and another occasion when I stand before you to address the same issue, the conflict in the Middle East. And not for the first time, developments on the ground have made me question the worth and utility of words in capturing the magnitude of the crisis. Yet not speaking about it would signal acceptance of the situation and abandonment of our humanity. And that I will not do. Our UN General Assembly was born 80 years ago, pledging to learn from, not repeat, history. The world vowed never again. However, for almost as long, Palestinians have been living through a cruel cycle of yet again, bombed indiscriminately, yet again, killed, injured, and maimed, yet again, displaced and dispossessed, yet again, denied rights, dignity, their basic humanity, yet again, So I must ask, how long? How long will it be before we find a resolution to this conflict, one that safeguards the rights of all sides and allows a level of normalcy in the lives of the families at its core? How long will it be before I stand before you and speak not of suffering and devastation in my region, but of prospect, prosperity, and potential? Sadly, this is not the only conflict in our world. And some may say that other wars are also devastating. But the Palestinian-Israeli conflict remains unique. It is the longest-standing conflict in the world. An illegal occupation of a helpless population by a self-declared democratic nation, and a flagrant violation of repeated UN resolutions, international law, and human rights conventions. A failure that should have elicited outrage and action, especially from major democracies. Instead, it has been met with decades of inertia. My friends, the war in Gaza marks one of the darkest moments in this institution's history. But although it is today's horror, the injustice stretches back decades. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict has been on the UN agenda throughout its 8 decades of existence. How long will we be satisfied with condemnation after condemnation without concrete action? When it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, it seems that what unfolds in the halls of power is theory. The struggles and suffering on the ground is reality. For decades, we have seen several attempts to achieve a solution by interim agreements and temporary stopgaps, none that delivered on the end game. In fact, many would argue these processes served as a distraction as Israel grabbed more land, expanded illegal settlements, demolished homes, and displaced entire neighborhoods. Muslim and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem have been vandalized and desecrated by those under government protection. And throughout all these years, Israeli families, too, have not been able to live in true security because military action cannot bring the safety they need. Nowhere is that more evident than in Gaza. More than 60,000 Palestinians killed, 50,000 children injured or killed, miles of burnt-out rubble, neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, farms, even mosques and churches in ruins, widespread starvation. And what we are seeing is only a glimpse, because never in our modern history has the lenses of international media been obstructed like this from capturing the reality on the ground. Almost 2 years in, and the cruelty of this military campaign continues unabated. Furthermore, the current Israeli government's provocative calls for a so-called Greater Israel can only be realized through the blatant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of its neighbors. And there is nothing great about that. I can't help but wonder if a similar outrageous call were made by an Arab leader, would it be met with the same global apathy? The international community must stop entertaining the illusion that this government is a willing partner for peace. Far from it. Its actions on the ground are dismantling the very foundations on which peace could stand, and intentionally burying the very idea of a Palestinian state. It has shown how little it respects the sovereignty of other countries, as we have seen in flagrant violations in Lebanon, Iran, Syria, Tunisia, and most recently, Qatar. And its hostile rhetoric calling for the targeting of Al-Aqsa Mosque will incite a religious war that would reach far beyond the region and lead to an all-out clash that no nation would be able. It is legal and historical status quo. Compromising the delicate balance in the holy city will turn it into a tinderbox that ignites global conflict. And Jordan is serving as the main base for international humanitarian response in Gaza, working by all possible means to provide critical supplies of aid and food. And we appreciate our regional and international partners. I'm also immensely proud of the many Jordanians, including men and women of Jordan armed forces, who are at the heart of this effort. Ground convoys, aircraft crews, doctors, nurses, and mobile medical staff who work even under fire to provide relief. These and countless others carry forward Jordan's deep heritage of compassion and generosity to a people in grave need. My friends, amid such darkness, there is a glimmer on the horizon. We are seeing more nations stepping up on behalf of a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, one that ensures the release of all hostages, unhindered humanitarian aid, and support for the Palestinian people as they rebuild. We all know that force is no foundation for security. It is a prelude for greater violence. Repeated wars are teaching generations of Israelis and Palestinians that their only recourse is the gun. Security will only come when Palestine and Israel begin to coexist. Seems I have the same problem as President Trump. Begin to coexist side by side. This is the two-state solution, in line with international law and UN resolutions. An independent and viable Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, alongside a secure Israel living in peace with its neighbors. For almost a quarter of a century, this has been the promise of the Arab Peace Initiative, in which Arab and Muslim partners around the globe extended their hand. My friends, for the past 2 years, we have finally seen the world's conscience stirring in the courage of of ordinary people from every walk of life and every corner of the globe, raising their voices as one and declaring, it has been too long. This United Nations must echo that call. It has been too long, and it must act on that call until peace is a reality. Thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Lee Jae-myung, President of the Republic of Korea. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
I would like to express my respect and gratitude to all members of the United Nations and staff of the UN Secretariat for their contribution to world peace and shared prosperity. I extend my sincere congratulations to Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock on assuming the presidency of the 18th session of the UN General Assembly. I also pay tribute to Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his unwavering dedication and hard work. I hope the 18th session of the UN General Assembly will achieve even more meaningful results under their outstanding leadership. Madam President, Mr. Secretary, and distinguished delegates, this year is a meaningful year marking the 18th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. The past 80 years of the UN has been a valuable journey of protecting the dignity and values of humanity and at seeking a path forward for future generations. If someone asks what the UN has achieved, I would confidently reply, look at the 80-year history of the Republic of Korea. It is no exaggeration to say that the Republic of Korea's history, dotted with challenges and responses, is the history of the United Nations, which has constantly confronted enormous challenges facing humanity. Liberated from colonial rule the very year that the United Nations was founded, the Republic of Korea emerged from the scars of division and ashes of war through UN assistance, maintaining national identity while achieving industrialization and blooming into a democracy. Therefore, the Republic of Korea in itself is a country that has proven the value of the UN's existence. Whenever the Republic of Korea revived the hopes of lives as precious as the weight of the universe amidst horrific wars and disasters, the UN flag fluttered at the center of that intense solidarity. The United Nations has strived to provide equal rights and opportunities to everyone without discrimination, and has provided education and vaccines to make children's lives blossom. The small country in the East, which rose with the support of the UN and the international community, has become a proud UN member that is drawing the world's attention. It is raising its role and responsibility as a member of the international community more rapidly than any other country. There were times when democracy and peace were in crisis, but each time the Republic of Korea rose with indomitable strength. Even a safe coup could not break the people of the Republic of Korea's strong will, desiring democracy and peace. The revolution of light that the people of the Republic of Korea achieved against the darkness of the insurrection last winter was a historic moment that demonstrated the brilliant achievement of the UN spirit. The remarkable resilience and strength of democracy that the Republic of Korea has shown will be ours as well as that of the entire world. I need you to take my hand and guide me away from all this, away to where the light shines through, to where the flowers bloom. As the novelist Han Gang, laureate of the Nobel Prize in Literature, wrote, the Republic of Korea will be a milestone of light for all those who join the journey toward democracy. Today, at the UN General Assembly, where world peace and humanity's shared prosperity is discussed, I proudly announce that a new Republic of Korea, which will be a beacon of light for global citizens, has completely returned to the international community. Thank you. The Republic of Korea, which has grown thanks to the support and assistance of the UN, will not hesitate to take on the role of a leading nation, generously sharing its experience and history of restoring democracy. Despite ceaseless efforts from all corners of the world, the international community's determination and aspiration to maintain international peace and security 80 years ago still remains an unfinished task for everyone. 280 million people are still in a state of extreme hunger. Armed conflicts around the world, including in Ukraine and the Middle East, as well as the climate crisis, which has already become a real problem, threaten the survival of humanity. The answer lies in the wisdom of the pioneers who founded the United Nations, as well as the path that the people of the Republic of Korea demonstrated. There is only one way: more democracy. The people-centered government of the Republic of Korea, through the power of collective intelligence, is ceaselessly attempting innovations, seeking better alternatives in democracy. The way to solve common challenges facing the international community is no different. When all the countries experiencing the same problems gather here at the United Nations and continue multilateral cooperation, putting their heads together, we will all be able to move toward a bright future of peace and prosperity. I look forward to the UN 80 initiative presented by the Secretary General, taking root as a vision that achieves UN's evolution and advancement in line with the demands of our time. I also hope the UN Security Council can increase the number of seats of non-permanent members, reflecting changes in the international environment, and enhance its effectiveness and representation. As a member of the UN Security Council for the term 2024 to 2025, the Republic of Korea is making efforts so that the UN Security Council can respond proactively to threats to the international peace and security. Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, and distinguished delegates, the Republic of Korea, having restored democracy, dreams of a better future. The Republic of Korea will fulfill its responsibility as a responsible global power that steadfastly upholds the values of freedom, human rights, inclusiveness, and solidarity championed by the United Nations. We will further develop our institutions and cultures so that everyone residing in the Republic of Korea, both nationals and foreigners, can be respected as an equal member of society in all fields of life. The Republic of Korea will strengthen and lead cooperation with the international community while realizing the value of respect for human rights. In a time of crisis where immediate survival is urgent, words like solidarity, coexistence, and cooperation may feel somewhat distant. 하지만 인류는 언제나 깊은 절망만큼 높은 희망을 꿈꾸었고 더 나은 내일을 향한 열정으로 지금의 진보를 이뤄냈습니다. 어려운 시기일수록 인류 보편 가치에 대한 믿음이라는 유엔의 기본 정신으로 돌아가야 합니다. 전쟁의 참화를 물려주지 않겠다는 일념이 유엔 창립으로 이어져 분쟁을 예방하고 평화를 지켜냈던 것처럼 미래의 인류가 살아갈 더 나은 세계를 위해 오늘의 우리는 더 협력하고 더 신뢰하고 더 굳게 손잡아야 합니다. 지속 가능한 미래를 향한 다자주의적 협력의 길, 우리 민주 대한민국이 앞서가겠습니다. 평화는 무엇보다 중요한 가치입니다. 대한민국에서도 전 세계 어디에서도 평화는 민주주의와 경제 발전의 기본적 토대가 됩니다. 지금 우리가 직면하고 있는 분쟁과 갈등은 인간의 존엄과 지속 가능한 발전의 이상이 평화가 없다면 얼마나 쉽게 무너질 수 있는지를 선명하게 설명해 줍니다. 오늘날 대한민국은 유엔의 평화 유지 및 평화 구축 활동에서 핵심적인 기여국으로서 책임을 다하고 있습니다. 분단 국가인 대한민국을 흔들림 없이 수호한 우리의 용사들이 유엔이 주도하는 지속 가능한 평화의 길을 걷고 있습니다. 평화를 위협하는 것은 물리적인 요소만이 아닙니다. 인공지능 기술이 안보 역량을 결정하고 사이버 공격이 국가 안보를 위협하는 시대, 우리는 이제 보이는 적을 넘어 보이지 않는 적과 맞서야 합니다. AI 시대의 변화에 수동적으로 끌려다닌다면 기술 악용으로 인한 인권 침해의 그 어두운 그림자를 떨쳐내지 못한 채 양극화와 불평등 심화라는 디스토피아를 맞이하게 될 것입니다. 그러나 변화에 능동적으로 대처한다면 높은 생산력을 동력 삼아 혁신과 번영의 토대를 세우고 직접 민주주의를 강화하는 유용한 기반을 만들 수 있습니다. 내일 안보리 의장으로서 주재하는 공개 토의 자리가 인공지능의 책임있는 이용을 촉진하는 국제사회의 노력에 큰 보탬이 될 것으로 확신합니다. 아울러 다음 달 대한민국 경주에서 열릴 APEC 정상회의에서 APEC AI 이니셔티브를 통한 AI 미래 비전을 공유하고자 합니다. 첨단 기술 발전이 인류의 보편적 가치에 기여하는 모두를 위한 AI의 비전이 국제사회의 뉴노멀로 자리 잡을 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다. AI가 주도할 기술 혁신은 기후위기 같은 전 지구적 과제를 해결할 중요하고 또 새로운 도구가 될 것입니다. 지난 80년간 지속 가능한 발전의 길을 열어젖히고 인류의 존망이 걸린 기후위기 대응을 선도해온 유엔의 노력에 세계 각국이 화답해야 합니다. 대한민국은 과학기술과 디지털 혁신을 활용해 에너지 효율을 높이고 재생에너지 비중을 확대하면서 에너지 대전환을 추진하고 있습니다. 올해 안으로 책임감 있는 국가 온실가스 감축 목표를 제출하여 국제사회의 단합된 의지에 동참할 것입니다. 2028년 칠레와 공동 개최하는 제4차 유엔 해양총회에서도 지속가능한 해양 발전을 위한 실질적 연대를 구축할 수 있도록 할 것입니다. 이처럼 전 지구적 과제에 적극 대처하는 우리 대한민국의 노력은 지속 가능한 발전이라는 인류 공동의 약속을 실현하겠다는 확고한 의지를 바탕으로 한 것입니다.
10년 전
Since the United
유엔이
Nations
지속 가능한 발전
established
목표를 수립한
the
이래
Sustainable Development Goals 10
국제사회는
years ago,
빈곤
the
퇴치와
international community
불평등
has
해소를
made
위한
much progress
여러
in
진전을
eradicating
이뤄냈습니다.
poverty and reducing inequality.
그러나
However,
개발 재원에 대한
the
수요는
demand for
지속적으로
development
늘어나고
financing is continuously increasing,
가장 취약한
and
이들은
the most
여전히
vulnerable are
고통
still
속에 놓여
suffering.
있습니다. 엄중한
Let
현실을
us
직시하고
squarely face this
새로운
grave
변화를
reality and create
만들어냅시다.
new momentum for change.
글로벌 개발
We must move
거버넌스를
toward
구조적으로
structurally
개혁하는 동시에
reforming global development
재원의 질을
governance
높이는
while
방향으로 나아가야
enhancing
합니다.
the quality of financial resources.
원조 받던
I
나라에서
trust that we will pull
원조하는
together in
나라로
order to bring
성장하고
about more
도약한
cases like the
대한민국의
Republic of
사례가
Korea
더 많이
growing and
나올 수
developing
있도록
from an aid recipient
함께
country to
힘을
an aid
모아주실
donor
것으로
country.
믿습니다. 올해는
This year
유엔 창설
marks the
80주년이자
80th anniversary of the
한반도
founding of the
분단
United Nations,
80주년입니다.
as well as the 80th
새로운
anniversary of the division
도전과
of the Korean
함께
Peninsula.
미완의
New
과제가 우리를
challenges,
기다리고
as well
있습니다.
as unresolved tasks await
민주
us.
대한민국은
Democratic Korea
평화
will begin a
공존,
new journey toward peaceful
공동 성장의 한반도를
coexistence
향한
and shared
새로운
growth
여정을
on the Korean Peninsula.
시작합니다. 그 첫걸음은
The first step
남북
will
간
be to
무너진
restore
신뢰를
broken
회복하고
inter-Korean trust
상호 존중의
and shift
자세로
to a stance
전환하는
of
것입니다.
mutual respect.
대한민국
The
정부는
government of the Republic of Korea
상대의 체제를
clearly
존중하고
reaffirms that it respects
어떠한
the
형태의
North's current
흡수
system,
통일도
that it will
추구하지
not
않을
pursue any
것이며
form of unification by
일체
absorption,
적대
and
행위를
that it has
할
no
뜻이
intention
없음을
of engaging in
다시
hostile
한번
acts.
분명하게 밝힙니다. 이 세 가지 원칙을
Based on
바탕으로
these three principles,
우선
we
남북 간
intend to end
불필요한
the
군사적
vicious cycle
긴장과
of
적대 행위의
unnecessary
악순환을
inter-Korean
끊어내고자
military
합니다.
tension and hostile
취임
acts.
직후
That is a reason
대북
why
전단
we have
살포와
proactively taken
대북
measures,
방송 중단
including
등의
halting
조치를
the launch of
선제적으로 취한
leaflets
것도
and suspending
같은
broadcasts
이유입니다.
toward the north.
앞으로 우리 정부는
Going forward,
남북
the
간
government of
군사적
the
긴장
Republic of Korea
완화와
will consistently
신뢰
seek
회복의
a
길을
path to reduce
일관되게
military
모색할
tensions
것입니다.
and restore inter-Korean trust.
가장 확실한 평화는
The most certain
싸울
peace is a
필요가
state where
없는
there is no
상태입니다.
need to fight.
교류,
Through comprehensive
관계
dialogue
정상화,
centered on
비핵화,
exchange
즉
normalization and denuclearization,
END를
in
중심으로
other
한
words,
포괄적인
END,
대화로
we must end the
한반도에서의
era
적대와
of
대결의
hostility
시대를
and
종식하고
confrontation on the Korean
평화
Peninsula
공존과
and usher in a
공동
new
성장의
era of peaceful
새 시대를
coexistence
열어가야
and
합니다.
shared growth.
교류와
The fact that
협력이야말로
exchanges and
평화의
cooperation are
지름길이라는
a shortcut
사실은
to peace
굴곡진
is a
남북
timeless
관계의
lesson
역사가
demonstrated by the history of fraught
증명해왔던
inter-Korean
불변의
relations.
교훈이기도 합니다. 남북 간
By
교류
gradually
협력을
expanding
단계적으로
inter-Korean
확대함으로써
exchanges and cooperation,
한반도에서
we will pave the
지속
way
가능한
for
평화의
sustainable
길을
peace
열어
on the Korean
나가겠습니다.
Peninsula.
한반도
It is
평화는
crucial
남북은
for
물론
both the RK
국제사회가
and the
함께
DPRK, as well
만들어가는
as the
게
international
중요합니다.
community, to work together to establish
남북
peace
관계
on the
발전을
Korean
추구하면서
Peninsula. While striving to
북미
advance
사이를
inter-Korean
비롯한
relations, we will provide our
국제사회와의
active support and
관계
cooperation
정상화
for
노력도
efforts to normalize
적극적으로
relations with the international
지지하고
community,
협력하겠습니다.
including
비핵화는
between the United
엄중한
States and the
과제임에
DPRK.
틀림없습니다.
Denuclearization is
그러나
undoubtedly a grave task,
단기간에
but it is time
해결되기
to seek
어렵다는
realistic
냉철한
and
인식의
rational
기초
solutions
위에
based on a
현실적이고
cool-headed perception
합리적인
that
방안을
denuclearization
모색해야 할
cannot be
시점이
achieved
됐습니다.
in the short term.
핵과
The international
미사일
community
능력
must gather
고도화
its wisdom in a
중단부터
pragmatic
시작하여
and phased solution,
축소의
beginning
과정을
with a
거쳐
stop in the sophistication
폐기에
of nuclear
도달하는
and missile capabilities,
실용적,
going through a
단계적
reduction process,
해법에 우리
and reaching
국제사회가 지혜를
dismantlement.
모아주시기 바랍니다. 한반도에서의
Realizing
항구적
lasting
평화
peace
시대는
on the Korean
분쟁으로
Peninsula would
고통받는
present new
인류에게
hope and
새로운
possibility
희망과
to humanity
가능성을 제공할
suffering
것입니다.
from conflict.
대한민국은
The Republic of Korea will
END
end the
이니셔티브로
Cold War in the Korean
한반도의
Peninsula
냉전을
through the
끝내고
END
세계 평화와
initiative
번영에
and fulfill its
기여하기 위한
responsibility
책임과
and
역할을
role to
다하겠습니다.
contribute to world peace and prosperity.
서로 다른 나라의
A
국민이
future where
상호
people from
협력하며
different nations
전
cooperate
지구적인
and
도전을
overcome
함께
global challenges
헤쳐나가는
together
미래가
may
꿈
sound
같은
like a
장밋빛
rosy,
전망처럼 들릴 수도
dream-like vision.
있습니다. 그러나 이는
However,
결코
this is
불가능한
by
꿈이
no means
아닙니다.
an impossible dream.
평화란
Peace
단순히
is not
무력
merely
충돌이
the
없는 상태가
absence of
아니라
armed conflict,
다름을
but the
존중하며
realization of a
함께
community
살아가는
where differences are
공동체를 실현하는
respected and
것입니다.
people coexist. As long as respect and aspiration for diversity is inside us, we can always unite and embrace one another. K culture is connecting people all over the world beyond borders, language, and cultural differences. The success and spread of K culture prove that universal empathy is possible, transcending differences in all backgrounds. Gathering the energy of solidarity, coexistence, and consideration, the Republic of Korea, having ushered in a new diplomatic republic, is ready to move toward a sustainable future and a new page in human history. Though a difficult journey is expected, humanity has been able to grow and come this far by not giving up on challenges, even in the face of adversity. As the people of the Republic of Korea raised colorful cheering sticks in the face of a crisis in democracy, I call on the international community and the United Nations to lift the lantern of hope that will light the future of humanity. The Republic of Korea will boldly lead the way toward a new era of peaceful coexistence and shared growth on the Korean Peninsula toward a better future together. Thank you very much for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Korea. The Assembly will hear an address by His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Amir of the State of Qatar. I request protocol to escort His Highness and invite him to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سعادة رئيس الجمعية العامة، سعادة الأمين العام، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لقد أنشأت منظمة الأمم المتحدة منذ 8 عقود بناء على عدد من القواعد والمبادئ التي توصلت إليها الإنسانية بعد حربين عالميتين، وتقوم هذه القواعد على الحفاظ على السلم والأمن الدوليين واحترام كرامة الإنسان وسيادة الدول وشؤونها الداخلية والتعاون الدولي بما فيه خير شعوبنا والبشرية. إن تراجع منطق النظام الدولي هذا أمام منطق القوة، يعني السماح بتسييد حكم الغاب، حيث تغدو مفاهيم القانون والعدالة نافذة خارج السياق، وحيث يحظى المتجاوز على الآخرين بامتيازات بمجرد أن بوسعه فعل ذلك. هذه هي الواقعية السياسية الجديدة التي اختزل تعريفها ليصبح مقتصرا على مسايرة القدرة على فرض الأمر الواقع. ثمة قصر نظر كارثي في هذا السلوك، فمرتكب التجاوزات في العلاقات الدولية يعتبر أن التسامح معه ضعف، ويعد المتسامح مع تجاوزاته عاجزا. إن الموضوع الذي ينبغي أن يتصدر النقاش في المؤسسات الدولية حاليا هو كيفية استعادة نظام الأمن الجماعي قوته وفقا لميثاق الأمم المتحدة، وعودة الفاعلية للشرعية الدولية. الحضور الكرام، كما تعلمون تعرضت الدوحة يوم 9 سبتمبر إلى اعتداء غادر استهدف خلاله اجتماعا للوفد المفاوض لحركة حماس في مسكن أحد أعضائه في حي سكني يضم مدارس وبعثات دبلوماسية. وقد سقط جراء هذا العدوان 6 شهداء، من ضمنهم مواطن قطري يخدم في قوة الأمن الداخلي الأخويا، وأصيب 18 بجراح.
people have been injured.
كان هذا العدوان انتهاكا خطيرا لسيادة دولة.
Aggression was a violation against our sovereignty and a blatant violation that is unjustified of international law. But the whole world was shocked because of the circumstances of this heinous act, which we have classified as state terrorism. Unlike the claim of the Prime Minister of Israel, this attack is not a legitimate right to follow perpetrators of terrorism. It is an act of a diplomacy that is dedicated to political assassinations, and it undermines any diplomatic efforts aimed at ending the genocide against the people in Gaza. It is also an attempt to kill politicians who are members of a delegation that engages in negotiations with Israel while they were studying an American proposal. As you know, Qatar hosts, as a mediator during the negotiations, hosts delegations of Hamas and Israel.
وقد أنجزت الوساطة فعلا بالتعاون مع الشقيقة مصر والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تحرير 148 من الرهائن. وقد واصلنا الوساطة مع أن إسرائيل ألغت الهدنة الأخيرة من طرف واحد دون تقديم أي مبرر. يحدون في ذلك الأمل بالتوصل إلى وقف دائم لإطلاق النار والإفراج عن جميع الرهائن وانسحاب قوات الاحتلال من القطاع ودخول المساعدات الإنسانية وتحرير الأسرى الفلسطينيين. يزورون بلادنا ويخططون لقصفها. يفاوضون وفودا ويخططون لاغتيال أعضائها. من الصعب التعامل مع هذه الذهنية التي لا تحترم أبسط المبادئ في التعامل بين البشر، فتوقع تصرفات أصحابها يكاد يكون مستحيلا. أليس هذا هو تعريف الحكومة المارغة؟ لا يسعى طرف لاغتيال الوفد الذي يفاوضه إلا إذا كان هدفه إفشال المفاوضات. وما المفاوضات عنده إلا مواصلة للحرب بطرق أخرى ووسيلة لتضليل الرأي العام الإسرائيلي. إذا كان ثمن تحرير الرهائن الإسرائيليين هو وقف الحرب فإن حكومة إسرائيل تتخلى عن تحريرهم. فهدفها الحقيقي هو تدمير غزة بحيث يستحيل فيها السكن والعمل والتعليم والعلاج أي تنعدم مقومات الحياة الإنسانية. وذلك تمهيدا لتهجير سكانها. لهذا السبب يريد رئيسها مواصلة الحرب. إنه يؤمن بما يسمى أرض إسرائيل الكاملة، وهو يعتبر أن الحرب فرصة لتوسيع المستوطنات وتغيير الوضع القائم في الحرم القدسي الشريف، كما يخطط لعمليات ضم في الضفة الغربية. لم يعد هناك شك في أن التطهير العرقي وتغيير واقع المناطق المحتلة بل وفرض وقائع جديدة على الإقليم هو هدف هذه الحرب. وقد بين هذا الاعتداء الغادر على سيادة دولة خليجية على بعد آلاف الأميال أن رئيس الحكومة الإسرائيلية الذي يتباهى بأنه غير وجه الشرق الأوسط في العامين الأخيرين يقصد فعلا أن تتدخل إسرائيل حيثما شاءت ومتى شاءت. إنه يحلم أن تصبح المنطقة العربية كمنطقة إسرائيلية. وقد حذرت الدول العربية والإسلامية التي تنادت وعقدت مؤتمر قمة في الدوحة من عواقب هذا الوهم الخطير. ليست إسرائيل دولة ديمقراطية في محيط معاد كما يدعي قادتها، بل هي في الحقيقة معادية لمحيطها وضالعة في بناء نظام فصل عنصري وفي حرب إبادة. ويفتخر رئيس حكومتها أمام شعبه أنه منع قيام دولة الفلسطينية ويعده أن الدولة الفلسطينية لن تقوم مستقبلا، وإنه يتباهى بمنع تحقيق السلام مع الفلسطينيين وبأنه سوف يمنع تحقيقه في المستقبل.
إسرائيل محاطة بدول إما وقعت اتفاق سلام أو ملتزمة بمبادرة السلام العربية، ولكنها لا تكتفي بالتسويات والهدن حتى تلك القائمة على موازين قوى مختلة، بل تريد أن تفرض إرادتها على محيطها العربي، وكل من يعترض على ذلك هو في دعايتها إما إرهابي أو معاد للسامية. وهذا ما أصبح الرأي العام حتى في الدول الحليفة لإسرائيل يدركه ويرفضه. وها نحن نشهد نشوء حركة تضامن عالمية تشبه الحركة العالمية ضد نظام الفصل العنصري في القرن الماضي. ولا يفوتني في هذه المناسبة أن أعرب عن تقديري للتضامن العالمي مع قطر بما في ذلك بيان مجلس الأمن الذي أدان العدوان بإجماع أعضائه. الحضور الكرام، لقد اختارت دولة قطر أن تظل كعهدها وفية لنهجها في صف القيم والمبادئ التي يفترض أن المجتمع الدولي يقوم عليها، والإيمان بإمكانية التوفيق بينها وبين المصالح حين تكون السياسة عقلانية وواقعية، وعدم الخشية في رفع صوت الحق حين يخيم الصمت، والتمسك بالدبلوماسية حيث يستسهل الخصوم استخدام السلاح. لقد انخرطنا في وساطة شاقة لوقف الحرب وضمان تدفق المساعدات الإنسانية وإطلاق سراح الأسرى والمحتجزين، وواجهنا حملات تضليل ضد الجهود التي نبذلها، لكن تلك الحملات لن تثنينا عن مواصلة جهودنا بالشراكة مع جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. إن قناعتنا راسخة بأنه لا يمكن تحقيق السلام في منطقتنا دون اتخاذ المجتمع الدولي ولا سيما مجلس الأمن موقفا حازما بالانتقال من انقياده لإيقاع الاحتلال في فرض الوقائع في حروبه المتتالية إلى حل القضية الفلسطينية على أساس احتلال الأراضي الفلسطينية والسماح للشعب الفلسطيني بممارسة حقه في تغيير مصيره وإقامة دولته المستقلة وعاصمتها القدس
and establish their state with East Jerusalem as its capital on the borders of 1967 as per UN resolutions and the two-state solution that has been the consensus of the international community.
إننا نثمن دور الدول التي اعترفت بدولة
فلسطين ولا شك أن هذه الاعترافات تكتسب أهمية معنوية إذ تبعث برسالة مفادها أن العنف والمزيد من العنف لا ينجح في تصفية قضية عادلة لقضية فلسطين، ونحث باقي الدول على الاعتراف بدولة فلسطين، وإيمانا منا بأن عدم الاستقرار لا يعرف حدودا وأن الإنسانية مصيرها مترابط. فقد واصلت دولة قطر جهودها الدبلوماسية للإسهام في حل أزمات أخرى كالحرب في أوكرانيا والحروب في أفريقيا، وقد أثمرت المثابرة في هذه الجهود مع شركائنا في القارة الأفريقية عن خطوات نوعية نحو إحلال السلام، كان أبرزها التوقيع على إعلان المبادئ في الدوحة بين حكومة جمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية وتحالف نهر الكونغو حركة 23 مارس، دعما لمسار تقوده الولايات المتحدة لاتفاق سلام شامل في الشرق البلاد. وستظل دولة قطر شريكا فاعلا في المجتمع الدولي لحل المنازعات بالطرق السلمية واقتناص الفرص لإحلال السلام العالمي. الحضور الكرام، ما زالت بعض الدول في منطقتنا تعاني من غياب الاستقرار والأمن، ولكن ما يبعث على الأمل and stability. However, there is hope through some positive developments. In our dear Syria, since the end of last year, is going through a new phase that we hope will be a path towards achieving the aspirations of the Syrian people towards stability, development, and the rule of law after the end of a dark phase of the country's history. Egypt has stood by على نحو مثابر طوال السنوات السابقة، وكنت أذكر بقضيته من على هذا المنبر حتى حين بدا وكأنها أسقطت من جدول الأعمال السياسة الدولية. ويتعين على المجتمع الدولي استغلال الفرصة المتاحة حاليا the international community is called upon to assist Syria now in order to succeed through the transition phase after decades of suffering. Our experience in other Arab countries has taught us that building state institutions and establishing relations between a state and others is based on equality, and internal stability on the basis of respect for diversity are paramount issues at this stage. Qatar will not spare an effort to provide the necessary support to our brothers and sisters in Syria. And we have no doubt that the Syrians will be able to overcome this phase and to reject sectarianism in all its forms, and that they will reject external interference, especially the Israeli attempts to divide Syria. And the conduct of Israel that is as though all areas south of Damascus are areas of Israeli influence. The Middle East has also witnessed positive developments through the election of President Ahmed Joseph Aoun in Lebanon and the appointment of Mr. al-Salam as a prime minister, which is a step towards stability in the country. Qatar will continue to support Lebanon government and people and institutions, and will continue to support the Lebanese army. We emphasize the need to implement Security Council Resolution 1701 and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the areas it occupied during the last war, and to end Israeli interference in internal Lebanese affairs. For Sudan, the people in Sudan continue to suffer an unprecedented humanitarian crisis because of the continued violence. We call once again on all parties to prioritize the national interest and to engage in a comprehensive dialogue that leads to a permanent peace and that preserves the unity of Sudan and its territorial integrity and independence, and that achieves development and stability. We declare our support for all international efforts that aim to achieve this goal. Distinguished Excellencies, Doha has always been a global capital that hosts major events in all spheres, and an area where leaders convene and decision makers from around the world to engage in negotiations and the formulation of solutions. Doha will host the Second World Summit for Social Development from the 4th to 6th November this year, and we look forward to welcoming you all during this conference.
ولا شك أن ثقة المجتمع الدولي بنا إنما تقوم على سجل من النجاحات التنظيمية التي حققتها دولة قطر على مر السنوات، وبناء على هذا الإرث الراسخ قدمت ملف ترشحها لاستضافة دورة الألعاب الأولمبية 2036 إيمانا منا بأن الرياضة ليست مجرد منافسة بل جسر يربط بين الشعوب ومنصة لترسيخ قيم السلام والتفاهم. ولقد أثبت تنظيمنا لبطولة كأس العالم لكرة القدم 2022 أننا قادرون على جعل الأحداث الرياضية الكبرى ساحة للتواصل والتقارب بين الثقافات المختلفة. وختاما إن دولة قطر وهي تعي جسامة التحديات التي يواجهها المجتمع الدولي تؤكد أنها ستظل وفية لالتزاماتها في مناصرة الحق وبناء جسور السلام وتعزيز العدالة في العلاقات الدولية. أشكركم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Emir of the State of Qatar. The Assembly will now hear an address by Her Excellency Jennifer Gillings-Simons, the President of the Republic of Suriname. I request the protocol to escort Her Excellency and invite her to address the Assembly.
Good morning. Madam President, we are here to commemorate in this special moment in history as we celebrate the United Nations 80th anniversary. And this 80th anniversary of the General Assembly coincides with the 50th anniversary of the independence of the Republic of Suriname and our membership of this organization. On behalf of the government and the people of the Republic of Suriname, I express sincere congratulations to the international community on this occasion. It is clear that a journey that spans over 80 years cannot be and has not been without challenges. The United Nations played, in some instances, an important role in ending colonial rule, worked on advancing human rights, and often provided hope and a future to the most vulnerable in our global community. This is also the organization that provided a voice to the global community and worked to establish a balanced world order aimed at adopting a framework for sustainable development agenda and contribute significantly to advancing human rights, more specifically the rights of women and children. The organization promoted education for all and universal access to health care. In some instances, the peaceful resolution of conflicts was achieved, preventing misery and saving human lives. Madam President, on the other hand, we must admit that the UN, at other times, regrettably has been unsuccessful in avoiding conflicts, wars, and violations of human rights. As we look at the world today, we see that in Europe, war has returned. Elsewhere, wars are displacing millions, killing many, and threatening global security and peace. In other countries and regions, for instance in the Middle East, we have witnessed unspeakable terror at the hands of terrorist organizations. The UN was not able to prevent that. At this moment, there are increased occurrences of grave violations of human rights and more specifically, the rights of children. For example, in Gaza, it is unbearable to even think about their suffering. Also, within our own region, which is the Caribbean, we have not been spared of rising tensions. It is with heightened concern that we noted the Secretary General's recent briefing on the Security Council meeting on the situation in Haiti, mentioning that the Haitians are enduring a perfect storm of suffering. Haiti is still paying a hefty price for being the first to throw away the shackles of slavery in the region of the Caribbean. Our hearts go out to the people of Haiti. Suriname strongly reiterates its position that conflicts should primarily be resolved through dialogue. And we remind the international community that Latin America and the Caribbean are proclaimed a zone of peace. We do not want military aggression in our region. Madam President, this is the moment, on the 80th anniversary, we should reflect and ponder on the next 80 years. What do we have to change and what needs to be done differently? We all must underscore and repeat it ceaselessly today that the United Nations will only be successful if all nations without exception, adhere to the resolutions we adopt. We can only keep the peace if we stop allowing that the votes of all the countries in the world can be nullified by one veto. Today, partially because of the work done by our organization, some poor countries have developed substantially, economically and otherwise. They have become powers who can't be ignored any longer. We have to remind ourselves that the world in which the United Nations was established 80 years ago does no longer exist. The task ahead, therefore, is that we, in the first place, renew our vows, recommit to the principles and objectives of the Charter of our organization, and recognize all the voices in the world, because people from all regions should have opportunities for a dignified life. Furthermore, the UN should adjust to the world we currently live in. This means, for example, the Security Council should expand to include all nations who exert major influence in the world. Exclusion of these players will only increase the risk of conflict and obstruct the beneficial cooperation necessary for humanity to develop and prosper. It is of great importance that all economically and otherwise strong nations and countries maintain a healthy competition that promotes the scientific advancement we need for sustainable development. On the other hand, these countries need to work together to guarantee global peace, so crucial for the existence and growth of the developing states and for their own countries. In this context, Suriname endorses the inclusion of, amongst others, Brazil, India, and the representation of the African continent for equal membership of the Council. Equally, we support the CARICOM position for a non-permanent rotating seat for the small island developing states and low-lying coastal countries. I would also like to remind the member states that my country, Suriname, has presented its candidacy as a non-permanent member of the Council for the period 2043 to 2044. Madam President, the United Nations must be a genuine unity of nations. If our organization, moving forward, wants to play a crucial role in creating a prosperous future for humanity, we have no choice than to genuinely unite, all of us. Suriname stands firmly for global peace, for the rule of law, and for the equal value of every human life. Considering this, Suriname once again calls for the lifting of the long-standing, unjust embargo against Cuba, bringing misery to its people. Madam President, Suriname is a country with people of indigenous, Maroon, Javanese, Hindustani, Creole, African, Chinese, and European descent. We all live together in a mosaic of cultures and faiths. The persons from Surinamese origin living abroad are part of this mosaic of our population and can contribute to the socio-economic development of the nation. We consider this diversity a great asset. Actually, Suriname does not have diversity. Suriname is diversity, and we keep working together to protect and grow our national unity for our own well-being and as an example of harmony in this often divided world. My country also carries immense natural wealth. and it is our vision to create an economy that is resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. Together we strive to build this more diverse economy by developing, among others, our tourism and agricultural sectors, strengthen our educational system, and work towards universal access to basic health care. Suriname has a vast tourism potential with its green and lustrous hinterland, many waterfalls, rapids, and great rivers for relaxation, as well as for unforgettable adventures, if you're inclined to that. Rich biodiversity, cultural treasures, and the UNESCO-acknowledged historical city of Paramaribo. Through cooperation in the agriculture sector with our neighbors, we aim at improving food security within Suriname and the Caribbean community. My government views energy security as a strategic priority for national development, regional stability, and economic resilience. With an investment of more than $10 billion for the development of our offshore oil and gas, the country is getting a new beginning, a new start that will contribute significantly to our economic growth. However, we know oil and gas revenues should not be the sole fundament of our economic development. Hence, we need investments in relevant sectors in our country. We are steadily advancing our energy transition. While we already source about 50% of our energy needs through hydropower, we are moving toward natural gas and other forms of renewable energy as part of our long-term vision, because we know climate change is a fact. Madam President, I firmly believe that education is the foundation upon which every prosperous society is built. We are committed to invest in our education system, our teachers, our children and youth. The future of any country depends on the talent and skills of its people. My country reaffirms strongly its commitment to upholding the rights of indigenous and tribal communities, ensuring that their livelihoods, tradition, knowledge systems are respected and preserved, and the acknowledgement of their collective land rights. Strengthening our institutions is high on our agenda. Suriname has worked tirelessly on the prevention of diseases, and despite challenges